A very good morning to you all. Welcome to the 2023 verdict state election. This is our continuing coverage of the general elections. Well, this time, the states will be having their elections. Not all of them, though. But yes, indeed, we'll bring you lots of information. And welcome to the program. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Indeed, various layers of election going on in different states. We're very excited to have you join us this morning. And of course, throughout the weekend, as we will be covering the elections in the state, the governorship in some states and the State House of Assembly elections in all the states, apart from the Federal Capital Territory, which already uniquely has its own, the National Assembly serves as its own State House of Assembly. So welcome to the program. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, it just so happens that the president serves as the governor of your own state, the Federal Capital Territory. And, well, unfortunately, there is no new governorship election for you. Here in Lagos, we are having one, and you're welcome to our Lagos studios. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Yes, indeed. So 18 political parties will field candidates today, and then you get to see about 993 state houses of assembly seats will be up for grabs tomorrow when they all file out, trying to see who will clinch the seats. Will the sitting parties, the ruling governors call for removal vans? How will the opposition parties in different states perform tomorrow? Well, can we even have an inkling? Can we get any idea whatsoever from what happened for the presidential elections? I guess time will tell, but I know so many people are up and running trying to see what will happen with that one. But don't forget, you can get across to us as you always have done. We'd like to remind you to take a look at our social media handles, #2023verdict if you want to join the conversation. But you can email us at 2023verdict@channelstv.com. But you can also tweet at us. If you use the Sunrise Daily now, that is equally fine. We'll accept that by all means. Not that we reject any, like some who are rejecting old notes. I wonder why.
All handles are welcome.
Oh, yeah, just bring them on.
Indeed. Very interesting. Yesterday was the last day of the campaigns.
Yeah.
By today, maybe you should be reflecting on who precisely has made an impression on you, what matters are really important to you as we go into the polls tomorrow. And tomorrow you go out to cast your vote on D-Day. Quite a number of matters for people to chew on, given their experience at the March 25th, beg your pardon now, February 25th, it feels like March, I don't know,
I know.
But February 25th elections. And I know that a number of people will be basing their experience, but we say, you know what, do not be discouraged. As somebody has said on this program, you know, the cure for democracy or for little democracy is more democracy. People need to continually engage the system. Do not give up on it. Yes, a number of things did not go right, but hopefully the hope this time around is that for this Saturday, they will be corrected moving forward. So let us see what will happen.
All right, so taking a look at what's happening today on our News Today beat. Let's remind you that Ready to Lead Africa, they have created an initiative called Follow the Results, and it's aimed to gather the results of the upcoming 2023 governorship and state assembly elections. That's what it's called. The initiative combines technology and human resources to monitor and report the election process in real time. One of the favorite words these days. To safeguard the people's will by providing transparent results from the local government and state collation centers. So there'll be a lot to look out for, because look, when Anna had that meeting after the elections with the Recs, they did say results will be uploaded on IRA portal, and then we expect to see the real-time transmission. Well, I guess lots of people are keeping tabs on that one to see will it not. But they expect them to at least keep to their words.
Well, I know that what will certainly not be tolerable this time around will be excuses. So INEC had better be getting its act right. Take a look at this one. I think CSOs are also ready to lead as a CSO, but other CSOs are also asking INEC to address the challenges recorded during the presidential and National Assembly elections. Connected Development and the Center for Accountability and Inclusive Development made the observations separately at the presentation of their interim reports on the conduct of the exercise. Both organizations want INEC to provide clarity on the issues that led to the failure to transmit results from polling units electronically in accordance with provisions of the Electoral Act and the election guidelines. So quite a lot of expectations.
Yeah. Look at that. They are going to continue distribution of sensitive materials today with the commission. They did some yesterday, so for the below cameras, lots of people out there who are wondering what is happening in which part of the state. But don't forget, the FCT will not have any of those cameras. FCT will not have any of those elections. So, but the states, a lot of them will. So, Ayo, what do you think?
It's a lot of work that we have on our hands, Chamberlain, perhaps to also underscore the importance of the fact that at the end of the day, what is important for us all as a people is to recognize the importance of what we need to do. I mean, you guys, you mentioned the governorship elections in particular, and Chamberlain, you stated the 993 Houses of Assembly seats that we have to vie for. But guess what? Most of the time, we don't really give attention to the legislative elections, the Houses of Assembly elections. For instance, how many people even know the people that are supposed to be making laws that the executive will use, that the governors will use to make their lives better or not? I think it's very, very important for us to pay attention to that. You guys also remember that. There are some people who are saying, hey, we elected this guy. We didn't even know who he was. And all of a sudden, right now, he has to represent some people at the National Assembly. A good number of people like that all over Nigeria. So I think it's also a good thing for us to pay attention to elections in the Houses of Assembly as we go to the polls tomorrow. So it's a good time for you to begin to ask, who are you? Who do you know the candidates that are vying for the House of Assembly that is going to be representing your locality? I think it's important for us to pay attention to that as well. Guys?
Yes, indeed. We're going to be keeping tabs on that one. So, so keep it locked here with us. We'll bring you all of those details and more. Don't forget, you can get across to us on any matter you'd like to talk about. But let's take a look at our story of the day. Today, we'll be focusing on some of those which we highlighted, some parts of it. But just to remind you, yes, indeed, the civil society organizations, they are asking the commission, yes, indeed, to speak up about the challenges recorded during the presidential and National Assembly elections. Some of them say they don't know what's going on. They've not been spoken to, as they usually would have by now. So they're asking, what is going on? We'll bring you a lot of those details as we progress here on the 2023 verdict state elections. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Let's run you through some of the dailies as quick as we can. We'll start with Vanguard newspaper today. 833 Guba, 10,240 assembly candidates slug it out tomorrow. It's a big lead on the front page of Vanguard newspaper today, and 28 governorship seats, 993 assembly slots up for grabs. 24 women eye governorship slots in 18 states. Police deploy personnel, promise violence-free polls. Why we awarded printing contract to Binani Publishing. Subscribe to INEC. INEC must transmit results electronically. George Olarinwaju Bokna Kerele. Subscribe to all of them there, so you may want to go ahead and see it. So, I want to say 24 women eye governorship slots, and you can only remember.
I only know one prominent governorship candidate. Well, my bias.
So there you go.
And even the people who have done like for you to win on the well, who knows? I mean, who knows? Who knows? Let us see what eventually happens.
Wow, 24.
Might be some pleasant surprises somewhere. But on the major political party platforms, I only know of one woman who was able to secure a seat.
Wow. So,
as a candidate.
I guess they've got their jobs cut out for them then, if that were the case. So that is the big lead on the front page of the paper here today. And then you get to see images of INEC and political parties inspecting sensitive materials at the CBN office. This one happens to be in Makurdi for the forthcoming Saturday's election before distribution to various local government areas in the states. Right.
Well, Chimling, just remember, make that two women.
Okay.
Make that two women, yes. One in the south and another in the northeast.
Okay,
yeah.
so, but if you only see the list of the 24, in case you're wondering, it's all here for you.
You bet I'm going to be looking at that list much later.
Yeah, I mean, even right now, I wish we could just flip through and just see what's going on. Where are they? Stand up, please stand up, and let's see. But yeah, you could check them all out. But then cash in circulation improves as new banknotes dry up, and some outfits are still rejecting the old notes. Please, somebody, if you have any visuals, send them to us. So you just go there, snap something, record something, call them out. Why are they rejecting the old notes? If you go to anywhere and they are, record it and let's push it all out there. No one has any reason whatsoever to reject it because the word is out there now, unless they are economic saboteurs, as we want to call them. Okay, I intend to form government of national competence. Tinubu, you thought it was going to be unity. National competence. That's ascribed to him here on the front page of the paper. So that's what you get to see. And then this bit at the lower strip. Presidential poll results came as shock to many. Presidency. We want more shocks. Okay, we want more shocks. This prayer. There you go.
Well, I know that the public loves the surprise, but it certainly will be very interesting. 18 political parties fielding candidates in different states. Do you know all 18? Do you know the candidates? I mean, in the state that you're voting, all the 18 candidates, do you know all of them? I mean, in Lagos, for instance, there's been focus on maybe 3, but at least they're about, well, at least I know 5. I think I've done well. I know 5 very well. I don't know how many more. It'll be interesting to see how many people can actually memorize and, you know, how the results eventually reflect their votes on the 18th of March. But let's take a look at this now. Leadership Friday has a very interesting way of couching the story about tomorrow for you. 14 states in dramatic governorship contest. That's them narrowing down. Don't forget, 28 states will be holding governorship elections. But they are zeroing on 14, which they think will be really interesting. You might want to decide or, you know, flip to the paper to see how they have decided this 14 and what makes them really interesting. What they say is in dramatic governorship contest. It's fight to finish in Lagos, Bauchi, Kaduna, Gombe, Delta, Adamawa, Rivers, Kano, Ebonyi, Enugu, Ogun, Oyo, Sokoto, Nasarawa. So they have already narrowed down the states for you, some of them with incumbent governors. Look at that. 11 governors in race for second term. Will they make it? Will they not? You might want to flip to page 4 of the paper. INEC, Army, warn personnel, police restrict movement for 18 hours. So page 4 is where, again, you'll get the story. The contest and numbers, they have the contest and numbers spelled out for you there. And at the bottom there, they have a number of other stories. Naira, fuel scarcity, inflation, push 24 million Nigerians into hunger. That's according to the Food and Agriculture Organization. So page 20, read. Aviation workers sue federal government over proposed concession of airports. APC crisis. I owe you no apology. Go to court. Lukman dares Omishori. It's on page 12 of the paper. PMB is talking to his successor. Sustain my anti-corruption fight. And the presidential poll. I will win in court, says Obi. It's a page 6 read for you. At the bottom, their competence will be basis for my appointments. That's according to Tinubu. So all of the stories there. Azu is writing on the back page, INEC server and other election day stories. is what he's writing on, but we'll leave it there for Leadership Friday.
You know, when we even talk about go to court, it's beginning to mean a different thing entirely, Mark, where everything is go to court these days. Well, look at it on the front page of This Nigeria. 24 hours to go. Governors conclude campaigns, seal last-minute deals. How does that sound like business? Or is it sports? Chamberlain, you would know about that. Anyway, look at the riders. 24 women in race to govern states. Well, Markwe, you certainly need to review that list, as you said. 11 governors seeking re-election. Police assures of peaceful exercise. Restricts vehicular movement. Stay away from politics. Military warn personnel. Story you'll find on page 4 of the paper. And look at it right beside the nameplate. Despite CBN's approval of old Naira notes, shortage still persists. Sounds like there's an elephant in the room somewhere. Stories on page 19. And right under the picture on the front page, Rivers, Wike alleges plot by politicians to disrupt polls. Urges IGP, other service chiefs to enforce order on security. Okay, and I think that's the same. This story right there on the front page is the same as the go to court story, Markwet. Defamation, no apology. APC vice chair tells Omishore. Stories on page 16. Tinubu, I'm focused on leadership with renewed hope. Find that on page 14. And court threatens to jail IGP over alleged court order violation. Find that one on page 8 of This Nigeria newspaper today. That's it for it.
Take a look at New Telegraph next. General election. Guba. Assembly polls rekindle APC, PDP, LP, NMPP rivalry. So, yeah, there will be a big one tomorrow. Many will hope that. I wanted to speak about shocks. Don't get it twisted. Even if an incumbent wins, to many people it will be shocking. So if an incumbent loses, to many people it will be shocking. So it's a relative term. So there will be shocks, whichever way you look at it. Just so you know. Before some spinners and spinners in a particular way.
The fear of spinners is beginning of wisdom.
You never know these days, man. So look at the rider. As battle shifts to states. Politics, not do or die, says Jonathan. You heard we highlighted that a lot yesterday as well. IGP restricts vehicular movement, exempts FCT. VSS arrests 2 in Kano over incitement. Gunmen kill PDP councillor, 2 others in Ibadan. Not what we want to see at all, or anywhere else at that. So, but unfortunately, it is happening, or it has happened here, as a matter of fact. At the bottom strip, Abdulsalami, how presidential poll triggered nationwide tension, says Atiku. Obi, others' maturity saved Nigeria. Charges security, law enforcement agencies to be alert. Yeah, and then, okay, that's quite interesting here. They have a lot actually going on here. APC crisis widens as NWC members engage in legal battle. Yeah, the famous courts, they've gone there again. So,
any surprises?
Not really. The courts will be busy these days, so many will hope that justice will not just be done, but will be seen to have been done by the populace because of the huge role. Because if people lose hope in the judiciary, you know where else they can resort to. So that's what we want to avoid. Well, that is New Telegraph this morning.
Just hope that we improve the working conditions for our judicial officers so they don't jackpot too. Because imagine our judicial system being hit with a jackpot syndrome. What will happen?
Yeah.
You know how long court cases are going to be in court for? Governorship election. This is what you find on the front page of The Guardian now. Lockdown on D-Day. No VIP escorts, IGP orders. So that's the lead story on the front page of The Guardian. Look at their riders now. National Peace Committee sues for peaceful poll tomorrow. NAS supplementary election holds in 15 states. COAS charges troops to be non-partisan. Nigerians will no longer accept failure, CSO tells INEC. INEC officials will be target of violence, intimidation, CDD warns. So, you know, really, we really hope that that server works tomorrow. The IRF really needs to be up because a lot of young people's lives, you know, might be at stake. But I'm hoping that voters will be, you know, will I say, astute enough to know that these people might not exactly be where the problem will be. But let us hope that the IRF works as it should, that when the young people are done as the youth corps members, collating votes, announcing results, and taking that, you know, it will be smooth sailing tomorrow for these people. Look at that. Yaga, Cash Crunch, others capable of derailing poll. Okay, we'll ask how much later today. APC, SDP to appeal judgment on electronic transmission of results. Page 6 is where you'll find details. Nigeria's long, tortuous road to enthroning cashless transactions. So they're not leaving that out for you. They have a number of other stories just beneath the nameplate there. CNG deplores Buhari's response to Supreme Court judgment on Naira swap. CSO submit petition to Buhari, demand probe of EFCC under Bawa. So you also find that story on page 7 of the paper. That's where we'll leave it for the Guardian newspapers.
And flip to Daily Trust this morning. And what do you have? It's also talking about the polls. Ahead of tomorrow's polls, security operatives on red alert in states. Peace Committee worried over violence, intimidation, threats. We can't say this enough, can we? That election shouldn't be war. And the words of former President Jonathan still rings true. There is no election worth the blood of any Nigerian. I wish we just pay attention to that fact. And hopefully this will be the last time we will talk about this. Don't kill people you want to lead. That's it right there. It's coming from former President Jonathan. Will prosecute staff found compromising standards. That's according to INEC. How satisfied are Nigerians about the fact that INEC, well, the IRF portal didn't work as it should? And what's going to happen to whoever, if there was ever anyone like that? Well, we'll hope to discuss that a little further this morning. The stories you'll find on pages 4, 11, and 34 of the paper this morning. Under the picture on the front page, National Assembly leadership, why we are delaying zoning till after governorship polls, is ascribed to Adamu. We won't allow repeat of 2015 scenario in the National Assembly while we suffered setbacks in our strongholds. Find that story on page 3 of the Daily Trust newspaper. There is this troubling, very, very disturbing story on the front page of the paper. And it calls for caution. Even as we focus on elections, we shouldn't forget the fact that safety is still something to pay attention to. Girl 6 mistakes petrol for kerosene, burns self while learning to cook. It's not what we want to see. It's a high level of irresponsibility, if you ask me. That's the story. That's the Daily Trust newspaper today.
Right, let's look at Nigerian Tribune next, and they focus. I mean, if you look at this, there's a lot that needs to be addressed right here this morning. Governorship poll. 4 feared killed in Ibadan as police beef up security nationwide. We can only confirm 1 death. Investigation still on, ascribed to the Commissioner of Police. 15,000 personnel deployed in Oyo, 11,000 in Delta. Hoodlums attack LP members in Lagos, 1 injured. DSS nabs 2 for inciting violence in Kano. IGP orders restriction of movement. So quite a lot for security agencies to do here and ensure that they restore the confidence, the peace, such that people can indeed go out there and vote. Not like what some saw last time out during those elections, but we'll talk about that as we progress here today. And then at the bottom strip, March 18 poll, candidates in last-minute push.
They will always push last minute. And even today that you're not supposed to be campaigning, don't be surprised if you get text messages or, bulk SMS, or you still see them on Twitter or any of the social media handles still trying to push messages across.
Well, they can equally get last-minute pushback. You never can tell. So depends on who it gets across to. But that's Nigerian Tribune this morning.
And what does it say to you? It's on the front page there. No appointment for anyone based on religion in my government. That's what you'll find on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. President-elect Tinubu, that story is coming from him. And look at it, vows to assemble competent young Nigerians, affirms commitment to double-digit GDP growth, food security, strong manufacturing base. Reserve SGF Chief of Staff for Christians group tells President-elect. I would have moved past this already, but that story is on page 2 of the paper today. NCC telcos not responsible for failed bank transactions. That's ascribed to Dambata. Find the details of that on the front page of on the inside pages, beg your pardon, of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. And with the Nigerian News Direct, we close out on the look at the papers right now. But as soon as we're back from this break, it's straight to the issues of the 2023 verdict, coming up right after now.
2 weeks after the presidential elections, the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security meets to assess the just concluded polls and prepare for Saturday's governorship and state assembly elections. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission opens the meeting with a commendation for the successes recorded during the polls. Done with the review of the past, it's time to look ahead to the forthcoming governorship and state assembly elections.
We're going to have...
Both the INEC chairman and the National Security Advisor warned the political parties and their supporters against electoral violence.
The state elections will involve 1,021 constituencies, 28 governorship, and 993 state assembly seats. It is therefore important for parties and candidates to speak to their agents and supporters to see the elections as a contest and not war. They should refrain from acts of violence that may mar the elections or compromise the security of our personnel, observers, the media, service providers, and even the security personnel deployed to protect the process.
We must comply with the rules. We must also allow everyone, I've said this so many times, to exercise their fundamental rights as citizens of this country. And we're also calling on the political bigwigs, the gladiators, to call their lieutenants to order. Anybody who is itching to undermine this process should please think again. It is not in his own interest, it is not in the interest of the nation as well.
The INEC chairman seized the opportunity to appeal to the police to speed up the delivery of the case files for speedy prosecution of all electoral offenders.
The Commission is encouraged by the directive of 2 state commands by the Inspector General of Police to handle all cases of electoral offenses expeditiously. We look forward to receiving the files from the Inspector General of Police. We will immediately set up a legal team to handle such cases in earnest.
The Independent National Electoral Commission is conducting governorship and state assembly elections for 28 states on Saturday, March 18, which is the last lap of the 2023 general election.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed. Muyiwa Adejobi joins us next. As you can see, Force Public Relations Officer. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Well, security is key anytime, any day. A lot more for these elections tomorrow. So if you could take us through the plans, because we know that last time around there were several images of videos, as a matter of fact, of disturbances in different areas. And so there were questions as to how the security agencies were able to conduct themselves to ensure that they responded in good time. What should we expect this Saturday?
Well, there is room for improvement in anything you do. Whatever the figures, pictures you must have seen, we still want to have that strong belief that we have done well. In the histories of presidential or general elections in Nigeria, this one has been adjudged one of the best, and for security community, we have done well. But there's room for improvements, like we always say. We have reviewed some of our strategies. You recall that immediately after the election, the IGP called a meeting of all the commissioners of police and above to review as a normal thing. Whenever you have an assignment, after the assignment, you review your strategies so that you'll be able to look and assess where you have gaps to improve on them. This is what we've done. So generally, across the country, we've done what we should. And we've done another set of threat analysis because this is gubernatorial election. It goes deeper than the presidential per se. We've taken note of certain areas that we think we should fortify properly.
What areas are those?
It's not for public consumption, Chamberlain. But when you say we have threat analysis, we don't say it for many reasons. Not because we don't want Nigerians to know, but at least we don't want to be creating unnecessary fears in the mind of people. But generally, we have some areas as flashpoints that we have identified, and we've done proper deployment. And even as of yesterday, we still sending support to them so that we will not have unnecessary issues in those areas. So generally, we are good. We are good to go.
Because, I mean, Yaga, alongside several other CSOs, they do their analysis in terms of some states that they think are states that we should watch out for, which will come to. But in terms of how the force will respond, comparing what happened last time, because some of those areas will be flashpoints again, because we've already seen some states that people were having meetings and then they are attacked. What is the force looking to do in terms of ensuring that, number one, that doesn't even happen? And if anything escapes and it happens per chance, they will arrive in good time and nip it in the bud? Well,
generally, I don't think we have a case where a distress call was put and nobody responded.
No, it's about what time did they respond? Response time is key.
Well, it's very key. I've not actually had a report where they did not even report or did not respond at all. Even if they got there a bit late, perhaps the people in that particular sector were not informed on time. We've seen cases, people, despite the fact we roll out our contacts, our numbers, people are still calling me as a person that we are in my area is this and that. For goodness sake, you agree with me that even on the program here on Sunrise, we roll out some numbers that we expect people to call in case they have any problem in their areas. But generally this time around, all of us, all security agencies are working together. All of us are members of ISIS. Whichever one that comes first, people should not expect the police alone to raise down to any scene if there's any problem. If the military gets there first, they're part of ISIS. If civil defense gets there first, they're part of ISIS. I mean the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. So far you're a member of ISIS, you are duty bound to respond to calls. Not only that the man on this uniform should be the one you see. And I want I'm sure that in most cases, they respond on time. Apart from one place in Lagos, they are saying they are not on time. But the military eventually got to that place. There they are saying, why must the military come? Is the police. But we all know that they are part of ISIS. They are part of the security management for this election. So I don't want Nigerians to just think that police alone will just be everywhere. Anywhere you see any security agency or agent, they are part of us. We work together, and it's a collective responsibility for us to make sure we nip any incidents on board on time.
Well, it's interesting how this deployment has been done, because I imagine that perhaps there was a regrouping. Apparently, I'm wrong in my thinking. I thought there was a regrouping, in which case maybe every team will be made up of maybe police people, NSCDC, perhaps some military operatives, etc. I didn't realize that they were working in different strategic locations. So maybe the military is manning this area, police is manning that area, NSCDC is manning this area. Is that what is happening?
No.
Okay.
It's a system. In fact, any deployment done in any state is coordinated by a commissioner of police of that place. Any deployment done is coordinated by the commissioner of police.
Yes, I know that.
So the CP knows where and where to put a team.
A team.
He knows where and where to put plainclothes men.
Okay.
He knows where and where to put the military. He knows where and where to put the
What I'm saying is when you see a unit of the military, it will only be made up of military officers. Is that what, that's the question I'm asking?
It might be the vehicle, but the convoy might not only be the military. If they move in convoy, it's a convoy movement, you're going to see other agencies in the convoy.
Yeah, that's if it's a convoy movement. But like in terms of deployment, in terms of stationing, that's what I mean. Most
of them mix together. But, you know, generally when you talk of deployment, if it is purely the military, particularly the Nigerian Army, Naval, Air Force, a senior man in charge of that place, in charge, is going to be the commander. So if you have a team, a cell of, let me use some terms here, but if you have a team of security operatives, including the military, civil defense, PMF, all of them, they move together, and the most senior person there will be the commander. And in most cases, what we use the military for now, the job of the military now is basically for restriction of movement, to escort certain areas, and to police some vulnerable assets so that they will not be attacked. So in most cases, there are some areas where you say that when there's the need arises for them, the military or the armed men, to raise down to a particular scene, they will be there and they will seem to have responded accordingly. So okay, whether you see them mixed up or you don't see them mixed up, all we do is to make sure that a whole system is being coordinated, and it's a system that's working together.
And it's able to respond when the people...
They are duty bound to respond. In fact, there are numbers, apart from the numbers we roll out at the national level, every state command has rolled out numbers, even numbers of senior officers in various local government areas. We've done deployment to cover local government areas. We've done deployment to cover senatorial districts. In fact, senatorial districts are being commanded by commissioners of police. And in some areas, you see AIGs in charge. So we have done deployment so that there will be easy coordination and proper command, dishing out instructions on what to do and what not to do. So generally, with the deployment, we have gone down the grassroots with our deployment. And the numbers of these officers have been rolled out at command levels for people to call in case there's any problem anywhere.
Well, in fairness to you, a number of cases that were noticed in the 25th of February elections, you know, people said, oh, that we called on the police, they responded. In some instances, the police even had to stop VIPs, and people commended that. But in some other instances, in some locations, where people talked about voter suppression, voter intimidation, they reported that in some instances, the police was right there on the spot and nothing was being done about it. I don't know if you saw any of the videos that were circulating where people were making threats to voters in a polling unit that if you're not voting for a particular party, you should leave here.
Mopa, is any voter showing them the ballot paper? Your vote is a very secretive thing. It's
yes,
not
but I mean...
anybody can make his noise. If I go to a polling... Somebody told me that in Lagos, somebody said, don't come and vote here. Am I going to tell them I'm voting so person when I get to my polling unit? Anybody can make his noise, whatever noise he wants to make. If I go to a polling unit, it's a secret ballot. I go there, I thumbprint, I put it, and I go.
So those people making noises, because someone will be making noise, but that kind of noise should not be there.
It should not, see,
it should not be there.
We should not be distracted. You can't, there's no how you want to do. How do you want to do that when you get to, there's no how you get to a polling unit. People will make uncomplimentary statements. They can even abuse you. They can attack you. They can abuse your father, abuse everything. How many of these you want to listen to? All you need to do when you get to a polling unit is go there, get your papers, thumbprint. You don't need to be saying, I want to vote for so person. So if that person that even issuing the threat will not even know the person you have voted for. But by and large, I think at every polling unit, security operatives are there for majorly maintenance of law and order. When it comes to infractions of some of these laws, the presiding officer has a lot to do. You see that presiding officer should I think to me, he's the owner of that polling booth at that time. If there's any infraction, he should be the one to call security operatives. Come and do this. If that security operative at that point cannot do anything, he's going to come for reinforcement. So I think Nigerians need to understand that when you're at a polling unit, the presiding officer has a lot of powers, and even the security agent at that point. You can't be too forward. The way we call it that, you put on Puma, or Puma on Beazin, you put on Puma and jumping, you are too forward. Whoever you pick without the consent of the presiding officer, people will read meanings to it. And that's why they have designed the law in such a way that the presiding officer has a lot of duties, a lot of responsibilities at the polling units at that point in time.
So just so we're reminded, VIPs, in fact, they're not allowed to be moving around with security officers, particularly policemen.
No.
That is not allowed.
No, not even only the police, all security details. That's the directive of the IGP. If you get the statement clear, it's not even the police alone. I think they had a meeting and it was agreed upon that even the military, military officers too, they have some people that attach to them, so individuals, we have DSS, we have civil defense, we have all of them. So far, you are a security operative and you are a member of SS, this directive is for all of us, that no, you can't give your men to that principal when he's going out to vote or is moving up and down. It is not allowed. You see the case in Kogi of a member of us, a rep, that was seen with some policemen. The policemen have been arrested. The House of Rep has been invited. He has been arrested. The statement, I think the case file has been sent to INEC for necessary action. So you
INEC,
don't care.
not the force headquarters.
No. It's been decentralized so that they can have it very, very easy for us to collate some of these cases. Headquarters is just collating figures of some of these cases, but case files have been sent to INEC for necessary action. And for let me say again that because of the provisions of the law, INEC is in charge of prosecution of all these electoral offenses. Our own is to investigate, compile case files, forward to them, but there's no how they want to prosecute without us anyway. So we are ready at any time INEC is calling on us. They are ready for any prosecution. We give them necessary support. And in most cases, police are being used as prosecution witnesses. So our officers and men who are involved, either at the polling unit or collation center anywhere, they want us to come and testify. We are ready to release our officers to testify and do the needful.
I know Ayo is always interested in the lead agencies. Let's see if that will feature today. Ayo, go ahead, please.
Well, that's not one of the primary things right now, but I mean, it is really important. And I think with your questions to Mr. Adejobi, he already dealt with those issues and, how the command structure and all of that is. But my question is along the line of his response to Mark's question earlier when Mr. Adejobi, you were talking about, good morning, by the way, you were talking about, you were literally educating us on what the voter should do at the polling units by not showing off who they're going to vote for and all of that. But we know how emotional these things get. I'm very sure that you had reports from various states of voters that were, shall I say, manhandled by other voters because as far as they were concerned, this fellow wasn't supporting the person that the public was not supporting, and consequently, they, manhandle the fellow here and there. How many of such reports did you hear, and what should be done by the security agencies, the presiding officer, as you said, and fellow voters in that environment in the event that such things happen?
What I can say for now, I might not be able to give you any empirical figure of cases or incidented during the last presidential election. But I can say, without missing words here, that those cases were incidented, and all these cases are being investigated. And they are at various stages of investigation. And after the 25th February election, the IGP addressed the officers and even addressed the media, where statistics were rolled out for people to know these cases that we actually incidented. But generally, the one good thing is election will be over, but these cases will still be on because these are criminal offenses. They have no statute of limitation. Anytime the cases can still be brought up. Even in the next 20 years, these cases are still on because no statute bar for any criminal offense. So we have these cases recorded, and if we have any other case or cases, we're still going to incident them for proper investigation and prosecution. So all these cases are being recorded and they are being investigated. In fact, case files have been compiled. I know some commands that case files have been sent to INEC for necessary action. So we have some of them, and we have done what we should in that regard.
Perhaps by way of helping the police with its investigations, is there a conduit through people can send information to the police if they observe such things as this in any part of the country as we hold these elections this weekend? Pictures, videos, whatever it is to prove that indeed some people manhandled other people at a polling unit.
We have all our social media handles, and you know now the digital media has made everything easy for us. Our official Twitter handle is there, Instagram, all of them. Even the email, people have been using the official email address of the Nigeria Police Force. They've been sending messages to us. Our lines have been rolled out. Even in my statement yesterday, I rolled out the key numbers that people can actually use to get across to us, including the toll-free number at the Nigerian Police Rescue Me Center here at the Joint Operation Room in Abuja. So Nigerians have all these platforms, all this information they can use to get across to us if they notice anything anywhere across the country. So we have rolled out this, and we have instructed the PROs in all these commands and formations across the country to roll out certain numbers in their localities so that the Nigerians and people in their areas can lay hands on some of these numbers they can call. At any point in time, I know they have these numbers and they call. And of course, we're receiving messages, complaints on a regular basis. And we have our handlers, social media platform handlers. They are 24 hours on, and they attend to, even me as a person, I handle these platforms on most cases. So we are on to attend to them if there's any issue on the field.
Well, that's cheering to hear. Perhaps it will also be good from time to time for the police to come out and say, okay, this is the handle for this platform and all of that. But I just wanted to ask you, Mr. Adejobi, are there lessons that we learn from the presidential elections and the presidential and National Assembly elections that the police, for instance, in terms of security, have learned from to ensure that we do not repeat that error in this election? What are some of those key lessons that we have learned, and how are they being dealt with this time around?
Well, generally, most of the things we have noticed are not for police to discuss. It's basically for INEC to address some of them. Delay in having electoral materials is not police baby, it's INEC's baby. Because majorly that's the issue. And of course, the issue of uploading or no uploading, is not police palaver, that is the INEC. And you agree with me that generally, this time around, police has not been at the center of any accusation of attacks from the public, while discussing the presidential election. In fact, people have been commending us for the first time that we have done well, we have done this, we have done that. But I think the majority of these issues, gaps, have been identified, and of course, there are INEC projects that they are looking into and to address. So I'm not speaking for INEC. For security operatives, we have about 1 or 2 or 3 cases where some security operatives were fingered in some incidences, I think in Calabar, Port Harcourt, and some areas like that. And to us, these operatives who were fingered in some of these cases have been identified. They have been detained, they have been investigated, and extra action have been taken. Those who are civilians that were involved have been, of course, arrested, investigated, and case files open for them for necessary action. So, and generally, we notice again, like the case in Kogi, where some policemen actually moved with a politician. That is not too good enough. This was condemned, and that's why the matter was investigated, and the men have been subjected to Olerum proceeding. We don't expect our men to be seen in this situation again. These are just very minor incidences we notice, and we have worked on them. We have given these election duty guidelines to all our men that they are expected to read religiously as their holy books, which of course I'm sure many of them are conversant with the content of this pocket book, election duty guidelines. It's guiding them and is actually helping us this time around because you know what to do, you know what not to do. So aside from one or two or pocket of these pieces of our men seen in various places, and let me clarify again that about 4 or 5 videos went viral where we saw policemen being alleged of snatching ballot papers, assisting this and that. These videos have been debunked. They're not true in any way because these officers actually went to assist on distress call to some of these polling units. But when the video went viral, the videos were like saying policemen actually snatching ballot paper, ballot boxes, and it is not true. You see a case in FCT where an SP was saying with some ballot papers that the video they were saying, police has come, police have taken our ballot. It is not true. And these videos were immediately debunked. So generally we have noticed some of this and we have worked on them for proper improvement. So we don't expect any of our officers to accompany any VIP this time around, and we don't expect any officer to go with any big man to any polling unit and disrupt this electoral process. Well, we will not take it.
Okay. Well, there's one or two other things that I'd like to bring up with you. One of which is the fact that there are some states that are generally, whenever there are elections, call for a bit of extra attention over the years. Excuse me. What's the plan this time around? Of course, we know some of the things that happened in Lagos the last time we had this election, as well as some areas in Port Harcourt and the rest of them. And it would seem like some of those issues are still like the dust hasn't completely settled. What's the plan for such areas so we do not have a repeat of the kind of things that happened, for instance, in Surulere and a number of other places in various parts of the country?
No, we noticed, and when we started the program, you know, I said we have done another threat analysis to know where and where to beam our searchlight. In as much as I don't want to be creating unnecessary panic on here, but we know that fine, we need to work more on Lagos. It's very key, and Kano and some other states like that. So we have done our deployment. In fact, if you read in the news that they said police, or the time they said police changing commissioners, changing this and there and there. It is not like that. The IGP has always been meeting with the management team and very senior officers in the command to see how we can actually do deployment accordingly, without being biased, without no sentiment in any way. So we have done our deployment, and the names of, I've told command PROs to roll out the names of officers who have been deployed to these areas and their numbers so that people can call them. We know that some states we're going to be tough, but there's no problem, no cause for alarm. We have noticed these states and we have assisted the command and formations there with what we think they need to work with. In as much as we want to be civil, we don't want to be too aggressive, we want to be professional, but we need to still remain a people that no fundamental human rights is absolute. We expect everybody to go out there. Do you know that if everybody does what is right, there won't be any unnecessary pressure on security operatives? If you go there to cast your vote, no issue, we will not be on our toes. If you say don't go out without, if you don't have your PVC, you don't have any business going out. If you stay at home and you don't go out, you know we're not going to have any issues. If you say don't use your talks, don't use your hoodlums to come and disrupt electoral process, and as a leader, you ask your boys to stay away from polling booths, not to disturb electoral process, you know security operatives will not be under unnecessary pressure. Let everybody do what is right. You know what is right, I know what is right. We know we have a law governing this process, Electoral Act is there, and other extant criminal laws are there. So these are the things we need to remind ourselves, because I believe everybody knows. But it's good for us to remind people that if you do anything wrong during any electoral process, either the Electoral Act will catch up with you or other criminal laws will catch up with you. So we want to appeal to our people again that we know the right thing to do. Let's go out there and do the right thing. And like I always say that if you think you have monopoly of violence, I said it here the other time that man who pulls the trigger to declare a war might not live to see the end of that war. So don't think you have the power, you have what it takes, and you can cause problem and want to go scot-free. If you are powerful today, you might not be powerful tomorrow. And one thing about criminal offenses, like I said, is they have no statute bar, no statute of limitation. Anytime a criminal case can be brought up against even 30 years. So let us remember that we are under a system. We have the constitutional authority, and we have a system that still works in Nigeria. And that is just the message again, because we are going there. After today is Friday. Yeah. Friday. Today is Friday.
Today is Friday.
Today is Friday. Anytime from 12:01 hours, midnight, you are not expected to move. And of course...
But Abuja is not affected by that now.
No, it's clearly stated. Abuja is not affected. We
don't have, people can move here.
We don't have any problem in the federal capital territory. That one has been done. There's no cause for any alarm.
Okay, so let me quickly take you up on some of the things that, the questions that, or responses that you gave my colleague, Ayo. You were talking about how some things are not the baby of the police. They're not the problems of the police. Talking about election materials arriving on time. But these things are part of the things that could eventually create security problems. I don't know how the police is taking that on board. I mean, right now, the people who are raising concerns, I'm looking at this summary from the Center for Democracy and Development, and they're talking about how, one, closely contested races will likely increase election-related violence. So in the places where election cases are going to be closely fought, I'm sure that you've already done your mapping, and perhaps you'll be deploying more people there. But in the event that, well, we hope that everything works out fine. But from what we saw last time, where people were asking the INEC officials, the ad hoc staff, the coppers, the youth corps members, to upload these results, and they were not, it was just not working, and they were held ransom. Isn't that the palaver of the police?
Well, you can say it's palaver of the police. Everything still comes back to the police. But the message I gave there was that I won't be able to speak for INEC because I wouldn't know what led to delay and arrival of materials. But as I speak with you, we have done deployment to even cater for escorts of these materials. And I'm sure that per local government, these are escort men have been on grant. In fact, in the last 2 or 3 days, they've been on grant to escort whatever they want to escort. Right from the time these materials left the CBN to anywhere, we escort with other security agencies. But if you are saying I should speak to uploading or no uploading, what do you
Of course you cannot. I'm not asking you to speak, but what I'm trying to say is where in that event it endangers the lives of those who have been sent to do a particular work. What is the police? I mean, that was something that nobody really foresaw. But from the experience that we have now, we now see that this could be an issue.
It could be an issue, but in most cases, what the senior officer there would do is to call either the REC to order that we're having a problem in so place. They make calls to talk to them. They call the attention of INEC to some of these issues because we still know we still come back to the police. We call them, but at this level, we can't do the job of INEC. What we can do is you can say that even at the other time, you notice that some corps members were attacked and were injured. What you can tell our people is why attacking our own children? These corps members are our children. If you have issues, we know how to go about it. Political leaders, they know where to go to. INEC has office in every local government in Nigeria. So they should go to the local government.
So have you raised this sensitization
No,
on behalf of the corps members and also raised this issue with INEC that, look, this could potentially give us a problem if these things do not work?
This has been discussed on several occasions, and I'm still using this platform again to remind Nigerians that there's no need for us to be attacking the corps members who are assisting us in making sure we have a seamless electoral process. If there's any delay, instead of passing on them and attacking them, enjoying them. In fact, I think maybe one was even killed somewhere. It's not proper, it's not good in any way. We can easily call the INEC officials there. If they cannot resolve the matter, we know almost all of them, even party agents, they have the number of their arrests. So why are you now attacking the people at the polling unit that you not go, kill you, if you don't do this, don't do that? We need to just manage our hangers when we have issues like this. But generally, we engage INEC. And don't forget NYSC too. There's a member of the ISS. They come together to the meeting. We talk to them. And this has been done at various states too, in our own commands, to talk to them, because we have ISS at national level and we have ISS at various states, and they have been talking to them as well. But we think the best thing is let's all be patient when we have issues like this. But this time around, I think INEC has taken note of some of these gaps, and they are working on this, particularly prompt arrival of materials to polling units. And that's the major thing, that when you have your materials by 8, by whatever, and voting start on time, they finish on time, there won't be any problem. But there are so many things I can't speak on here now.
Just to give a pictorial representation, I hope that as we wind down, hoping you could speak to some of these ones. Yaga did put up this threats, election manipulation risk map, and they highlighted about 27 states could be at risk. You know, some of them are, if you look at that, if you could come up, you have very interesting scenario here. And look at the spread of all of those. And if you see them, hope you can see what you can right there. So there you go. Now, a lot of these states, it's not that this information is new. And so they are usually on alert. They have, it's like there's a history to some of these states. So the agencies, security agencies should be, well-versed with what happens in some of these states. So for these states that this kind of scenario happen, I know you spoke about people may come and threaten you or attack you, but are people supposed to be allowed to threaten people even when you're going to go and vote? Is that supposed to be allowed? Even though you say, look, if they don't touch you and verbally threaten you.
Mere ways of mouth does not constitute offense, Chembele. You should not be distracted by all this. Somebody says, I'm going to... If I tell you today that Chembele or somebody that I will kill you, and that person dies tomorrow, there are decided cases that will say, oh, no, be you kill him, except you can actually link me up to the death of that man. Mere ways of mouth does not constitute any offense. But the fact is, we should just be mindful of what we say. Oh, Chembele, tell me, have you not... So far, if you want to arrest people for his speeches, fake news, fake information, violating electoral acts, are we still going to have any candidate? So far, so good. Almost everybody has committed one offense or the other. We need to live to tolerate one another. We need to live together as a family in Nigeria. Somebody is saying, don't come out. Like I said, don't come and vote. If you come out, if you don't vote for so-so person, they have trouble. Yeah, I don't need to tell people that I am going to vote for so-so person. It's my personal, right? It's my property.
If the security agencies are there when that is happening, are they just supposed to watch as far as the person doesn't touch the other person?
Like I said, at a polling unit, they need to work with the presiding officer. No policeman will just say, you, what are you doing? Anora, I arrest you. It's not done that way. The presiding officer should call attention of security operatives to that come, please, this person is disturbing. There's a case I gave, an instance I gave to somebody that somebody was disturbing the collation center in one state, and the reg was like warning that senior officers were there, they didn't pick the person until the reg will be the one to say, please, you are disturbing my collation center, please excuse us. Okay. If the reg doesn't say it, they'll just be looking because the reg is the owner of that collation center. So it's the same thing, the same thing is applicable to the polling unit. The presiding officer is the owner of the polling unit. So it should be the one to say, come, you have done this.
What about states who claim that circulating information as to a certain kind of festival holding on election day?
States,
is that supposed to be allowed?
You say Lagos, definitely. It's only Lagos.
Only Lagos.
And I put a call personally to Kabiyesi Elegushi yesterday when I read it. People have been saying I should speak to it, and I said no. It's Lagos. It's Lagos matter. I speak for the IGA.
You speak for the force.
Let me see.
They need to know the mindset of the force on this one. The police.
They said the boy, the Ben in Lagos is my boy. I said no, Ben is not my boy. He's my colleague in Lagos. He can speak for himself. But by and large, when I put a call to him, he said they're having the festival, but it's not affecting. It's not getting into Saturday, the election day. And immediately advised him, and I think he did a statement to correct that no, it's not disrupting electoral process. It's not on Saturday. They are going to end on Friday. But generally, I don't think it's not going to be reasonable to have such a kind of festival on election day. It's not reasonable in any way. And we know that Oro is that the women, you don't even see, even men that are not strong enough cannot hear the sound of Oro. I'm a Yoruba man, I know what it is when they say Oro. And that's why the tension is heightening up in Lagos. Why they don't want us to go and vote? No. I think they've clarified that. There's no cause for alarm. People will go out and vote. You know, Lagosians, they know the way they go about it. All we can say is let us just take it easy. It's somebody who has been crowned, who has been ordained to be a king, will definitely be a king.
But even if it was not election related, how should those scenarios be conducted? Because if people feel people are going about their normal duties, are they supposed to be, should they affect people's movement? Because I thought people have a right of movement and association and ensure that it doesn't interfere.
Whatever we do, people have their culture, they have their tradition. You can't say they should not do it. It's a cultural thing. And you know it's like a religious thing. They are very sensitive matter that you don't even dabble into anyhow. But the thing is they give notice. Oh, we want to do our Oro festival, we want to do our Oro festival so period. Please don't go so time. It's not 24 hours. It's not 24 hours. We've been having issues like this when I was PRO in Ogun. We'll be having Oro and Oro festival will come during Ramadan. People want to do night vigil, they want to do night prayers, they want to go to mosque, and they say they should not go. He solved it. These things are meant for us, that they are not to control us. In science, there is a concept of environmental possibilism. That it's possible we control our environment, not that all the time environment be controlling us. So it is possible, and we reconcile. And they've been moving together, they've been coexisting. So it's not that these things must actually control us. These are spirits that we can appease to them. Whatever you want to take, Baba, please take. Let these my people go and go and go. But generally, we can't say people should not do their tradition, they should not do their culture. We know there's tradition, there's culture.
There was no way we could have, I mean, assuming the police even, I don't know how quickly the police got this notice, but couldn't there have been an appeal that perhaps the festival be pushed forward so that, you know, people do not feel threatened?
I'm sure,
especially women.
I'm sure people in Lagos must have brainstormed on this. They must have discussed it, because I didn't have a special discussion with the CP on that. But I'm sure all of them in Lagos, they know what to do. They must have looked into it. But I want to be very sure that that Odo or whatever will not disrupt election on Saturday. It's not possible.
Okay, so basically no one's above the law. There you go. We do thank you for coming on. So, but we'll get a lot more information and pass it across. And emergency numbers, as you've heard him say, we're all expected to go out there and conduct ourselves peacefully for these elections. Thank you for coming on. Muyiwa Adejobi, Force Public Relations Officer. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.
The voting procedures during an election is brought to you by Channels Television. Remember that you're qualified to vote if you are a registered voter and your name appears on the register of voters at your polling unit. On each election day, polling stations will open for accreditation and voting from 8:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. However, voters on the queue before the close of poll at 2:30 p.m. will be accredited and allowed to vote. Voting at the polling unit will be as follows. Step 1. At the polling unit, join the queue. An INEC official will check if you are at the correct polling unit and confirm that the PVC presented belongs to you. Step 2. An INEC official will confirm if your PVC is genuine using the BVAS. You will be asked to place your finger on the BVAS. Step 3. An INEC official will also confirm you are listed in the voters register. Your name will be ticked and your finger will be inked to confirm that you have voted. If your name is not found, you cannot vote. Step 4. The presiding officer will stamp, sign, and endorse your ballot paper. You'll be given the ballot paper rolled with the printed side inwards and directed to the voting cubicle. Step 5. Stain your finger with the ink given and mark the box for your preferred candidate or party. Roll the ballot paper in the manner you are given and flatten it. Step 6. Leave the voting cubicle and drop the ballot paper in the ballot box in full view of people at the polling unit. Step 7. Leave the polling unit or wait if you wish to in an orderly and peaceful manner to watch the process up to the declaration of the result. The result of each polling unit shall be pasted at the unit for everyone to see. Vote wisely and avoid vote buying. This announcement is brought to you by Channels Television, a network built on trust.
can only advise that politics is not about you must be there. If God wants you to be there, you will be there. If it is not yet your turn to be there, you will not be there. When I became a vice president, that day I almost cried. I never wanted to. But that was my destiny, and I had to move. So I'll advise those who are contesting for our state. The challenges are minimal because only state assembly elections we have, no governorship elections. Those elections will come up this year anyway. So I plead that our people who are interested in these offices and our supporters should conduct themselves very well. They want to serve us, not to serve themselves. I always tell people that if you are so ambitious, then go and do business. You cannot force me that to take you to serve me. If you want to be in the state assembly and people don't want you, fine, go and sleep. You want to be a governor and the people don't want you, go and sleep or do business. But if you want to serve us as people, then you must be humble and you will not kill us before you serve us. So people must conduct themselves peacefully. And if God wants them to win their elections, they will win their elections.
Welcome back. Let's get some further updates and quick ones too from Borno this time. I mean, we'll crisscross some of the states and just get some information. You heard the Force Public Relations Officer say, well, the CPs are to coordinate their specific states where they have those challenges. I mean, Maiduguri, well, if you look at some of those maps, which will come up much later, they have to ensure things are in top shape. So Abdul Umar joins us now, the Commissioner of Police for Borno State. He joins us from our studios in Maiduguri. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Can you hear me loud and clear? Mr. Umar, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you right now.
Okay, so go ahead and tell us, what should the citizens of Borno expect? Because we have hosted some governorship candidates on the program here. They raised concerns about their campaigns, how they were being intimidated and harassed, and they really wanted a lot more protection and visibility of security agencies to ensure that people come out and vote uninhibited. What is the force doing to ensure that there's peace and people are about to go voting tomorrow?
Well, thank you very much for this incisive approach. And indeed, in Borno State, whoever will come up and said that the security is not effective, and such making comments, I think I should have a rethink. In Borno State, we have developed inter-agency approach. All the security apparatus in Borno State are engaged in providing security, and secondly, we equally have the access where we meet and discuss. From inception, we are able to provide an enabling environment, leveraging on our initial security architecture. You know, Borno State infested with a lot of insurgency, and we have been on for quite a long time. The entire area is very peaceful. And we have provided enough and adequate security during political campaigns. And the only incident of the PDP that occurred, which has been tackled, I think for any gubernatorial aspirant to come up with an assertion or the suggestion that police have not been effective or they have been intimidated in areas of campaigns, I don't think that one is quite online. All the gubernatorial aspirants have been given adequate security provision. Indeed, yesterday and the day before yesterday's, 2 major contenders have gone out and security have been beefed up, and we have never received any negative report from their campaigns. The entire Borno area is very peaceful, and the last election is a testimony. There was no any complaint against the police, and we have done the needful. And after the process, we debrief our men, and even at the access level, we have reviewed all our strategies And it is anticipated that in the coming election by tomorrow, it is going to be more purposeful and objective, and we are going to have credible results. Thank you.
Indeed, you've already highlighted, Mr. Umar, thank you again for joining us. You've highlighted the fact that Borno State is unique in terms of some of the security challenges that it faces. We understand that in the February 25th elections, there were attacks by Boko Haram insurgents in a particular location, but they were dispelled anyway. How are you so sure that for this March 18 elections, you're not going to be having the same scenario?
Well, thank you very much. You see, we continue to review our threat assessment, and indeed, we leverage on our initial plan, both the military and the police and other security agencies, where we disallow the miscreants to carry out their nefarious activity. And as such, that very particular day, because they don't have a space, they went to one of the mountainous area, which is Goza, and fired some missiles. Honestly, there's no way that the whole entire environment can be scanned and equally can be fortified. If they feel they still have to go to that place, I believe we have equally strategized, and the Air Force have taken proper necessary action, because like today, this morning, I woke up and I saw the helicopters, Air Force helicopters, going around. They have already commenced, because since we had that experience, we are not going to give them more space. They don't have opportunity to operate under the last 4 years election. They equally fired missiles, which landed very close to the airport and other places. Essentially, this time around, they don't have the space, and that is why they are going to that place. And I believe, with the experience we had just last election, both the military and the police have taken necessary action to prevent them from any mishap.
Will elections be happening in all the local government of Borno, or, I mean, as we've had before, knowing that, you know, some areas were still unsafe, some constituencies were merged into other constituencies. How safe is it right now in all the local governments for the elections to take place in all of these local governments?
Honestly, Borno is largely peaceful. We only have 2 local governments where election could not be held, which is Guzamala, where they have been relocated to Nganzai, and Ran, which is Kalabalgi, has equally been moved to Gala. This is to ensure the safety of both the voters, the INEC staff, and the property involved for the election. And I believe in all the places, election will be conducted peacefully. We have the last experience where we had no hitches, apart from that firing, which did not disturb the process.
Well, there's word on the streets that when opposition parties put up posters of their candidate or who they want to be voted, that they're usually attacked by some elements of the civilian JTF. Have you heard about that? What is the force doing about it?
This is the scenario I have earlier on told you, that of the coming of the Excellency, the Vice President, who is the candidate of the PDP. And that was the last, and since then we have been having interaction with all these political parties. I'm telling you that Borno is safe and free. There are no infringements on violation of placement of poster. There's no attack anymore, because when it happened, we were highly reactive, because we made arrests, and over 30 of these political talks were charged to court, and that brought about calm in the entire area, and the area is just quite okay and peaceful. I believe we are going to have a credible and free and fair election.
What is the situation with the arrest that you made? What stage are you with that now?
Well, they have all been charged to court. They have all been charged to court, and that is in collaboration with the INEC. These 30, I believe, most of them have been prosecuted. And the idea is I cannot definitely told you whether they face fine as per the Electoral Act or they be sentenced to imprisonment.
So on election day, what areas, because I mean, we know that Borno was faced with some insurgency. So what should people expect in terms of areas that they should freely go around and vote and areas that people should stay away from? What would you advise?
Well, my advice is for all the citizens, more especially the eligible voters, to come out and cast their ballot. Borno is entirely, apart from the 2 local governments I've told you, and it's not that the 2 local governments are infested with insurgents or terrorists. No, the Ran area is issue of flood. It's overflooded with water. As such, it's not going to be easy for the exercise to be conducted. And Guzamala has been the only local government that we don't have settlements. Not that Boko Haram are there, but you know their facilities don't have facilities because for over 10 years the place has been isolated. And just my appeal is for everybody to come out and exercise his franchise to cast ballot to whom he desires. And I believe this ballot will be safeguarded and it will count.
All right, so let's bring in our colleague in Lagos. Go ahead, Ayo.
And I'd like to reference some of the information you shared earlier, Chamberlain, from that slide that was given to us by our friends in Yaga. And that's the basis of my question to you, sir. Talking about security in Borno State. Borno State, you know, over time, based on some information available to us, has had, as part of its election manipulation risks, voter suppression is one of them. Borno State is listed in that regard. It's one of the states, one of the 33 states listed as capable of voter suppression. Borno State also has a history of election fraud and as well as election litigation, all of them with their various indicators. I want to assume that you have, at least from your own level, there are lessons that have been learned from the presidential elections and the presidential and National Assembly elections. Are there any way in which some of these things manifested during that election, and what was done about them, and how do we get ahead of it this time so it doesn't repeat itself?
Well, I believe the process is for individuals who are eligible to vote to go and cast their vote. It is equally, I think, it's the responsibility of the INEC to ensure that this manipulation, as you have said, or as identified by, is it Yaga, to come up and say and make a clear statement. The responsibility of the police is to ensure safety of the voters themselves, the INEC staffs, and the materials, and ensure that the process went well. The issue of manipulation, I wouldn't know. The documents are not with me. And if Borno has these characteristics, I believe there's a lot of litigation, and the aftermath of the litigation will always prove that actually there was that fraud. But if after the election there was litigation and it went through the court process and the status quo was maintained, and I don't think this could be an assertion.
Well, Mr. Umar, the indicators for the first of them, which is the voter suppression, includes vandalization of INEC offices and election materials, unavailability of PVCs for all registered voters, and theft of PVCs. The ones that concern the police, I would imagine here, is the vandalization of INEC offices and election materials, as well as theft of PVCs. Are there any cases in which these happened in any part of Borno State at all, and was there any reaction from the police to it?
Well, I've not gotten you very well, but I believe you are talking on the issue of vandalization
Yes.
of INEC offices
Yes.
and properties. So, and look, to tell you that so office of INEC has been vandalized. In Borno State, the INEC offices are very, very well secured. I told you we are leveraging on our initial security deployment. We have sufficient military personnel here, and we have sufficient policemen and civil defense that will man all our critical infrastructures. We have never had the experience of vandalizing any of the INEC offices. But it is natural in the course of the process, at a particular polling unit or at a particular point, there may be a kind of friction which may result in destruction. But as I'm telling you right now, I don't have any suspect who violated or who committed an offense on election day or election duty that will warrant prosecution. Everybody his eyes is open, and if there are such people, alarm might be raised, more especially if it's in the polling unit by the presiding officer whose statement is very key in the prosecution. But I'm assuring you that Borno is very peaceful, and we don't have any issue of vandal, apart from the issue we have earlier on discussed of the destruction of posters, and which will put an end to that.
Peculiar behaviors of people in Borno State, and especially in terms of security, because as you said, it is only natural that people who have candidates of their own that they favor, they would want to do whatever it is they can do to ensure that, I mean, they assist them in getting to office and all of that. Are there behaviors that you may have seen that could compromise the peaceful process and safety of voters that will come out to vote in Borno State tomorrow?
Well, I've not gotten you quite clearly, but what I can be able to grasp is that issues that could tend to make individuals support the manipulation activity. Well, I've not seen it, and everybody has his free will to make his choice. And definitely in the process, there may be infringements here and there, and that was why we have the electoral law, which specifies offenses in the Electoral Act, and definitely we are not relenting. Any electoral offenses we have seen, which is outside the polling unit, the police make arrests. And any offenses being committed in the polling unit, at least we need an input of the presiding officer who will identify that offense and inform the security agencies. And you know, 38 meters away from the polling unit, we have armed policemen who are patrolling. And the polling orderly or the policeman, the security in that place, can be able to even wave hand and call them to come and pick that that individual who committed that infringement. And definitely he will be prosecuted, and he will carry his cross.
All right, Mr. Omar, as you wind down on this one, can you tell us, some persons were arrested in Borno concerning the market fire. What is going on? Were they responsible for setting the place ablaze or what?
No, thank you very much. On that particular question, the persons were not responsible for setting ablaze the fire, but in the aftermath of the fire, they engaged in looting people's property, and were able to apprehend 50 of them, and these 50 have been prosecuted. And the owners of this property came to the police command and equally identified such of their problems that make the prosecution to be easy, because the property has an owner and is movable. And they have all gone to court. I believe out of the 50, only one lady went scot-free, who happens to be a passerby, and in the course of the police action, she was picked. The 49 have been imprisoned.
Have you arrested anyone connecting who was probably involved in setting the place ablaze?
No. From the present investigation, current investigation, as at now, the source of the fire could not be ascertained. However, it emanated from even a visitable location in the market. And on that particular day, the market was closed. It was because of the election. It was just the following night that this market was engulfed in this fire. There were, apart from the police investigation, the state government has equally established a panel of inquiry to ascertain the possibility and what causes the fire. But it has not been fingered to any individual or group.
Well, the force, they put up a statement saying that no police officer is expected to accompany any private citizen or VIP whatsoever to any election place for voting or whatever purpose, or to help manipulate the result or influence anything. Have you given that directive to your men that they should comply strictly?
Definitely. All orders and circulars and directives from the force headquarters are equally being disseminated to the subordinate officers. I have given that directive, and the issue, we have to be so clear that the directive is not saying that a security personnel cannot go to that place. Importantly, nobody should go to the polling unit with arms, but when you are escorting the president to go and cast his ballot, or the governor to go and cast his ballot, he must move with the regular of security, more especially if there is distance, but they are not to go to the polling unit. After casting his ballot, they will escort him back. 38 meters away from the polling unit, armed personnel can move around and ensure they patrol the area, and make the process secured.
All right, then, Mr. Abdul Umar, Commissioner of Police, Borno State, thank you for talking to us, and all the best to you and your men.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, back in just a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the 2023 verdict state election. We're focusing on the states. Remember, there will be governorship elections, then state assembly elections in those states. And yes, a lot of them, even states that do not have governorship elections tomorrow, will have state assembly elections. So a lot will be going on in those states. And
I think that publicity is extremely important, because people might think, oh, they don't have a governorship elections in my state, I do not have to go out. But please, you still have to vote for your legislators.
Yeah.
And those elections are equally as important as whoever it is that will also be leading the state as governor. Don't forget that there are three arms of government in a democracy: the executive arm, the legislature, and the judiciary arm of government.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, one of those states that will be having elections is Kano. Quite an interesting state, which a lot of eyes will be on. We'll talk about that soon. But we do have our correspondent there. He joins us now to tell us what's going on there, because many want to find out, how will the pendulum swing? What about the people in Kano, the electorate? What are they up to? Sadiq Ilyas joins us. He's our correspondent there. Hello, Sadiq. What's going on?
Kano State is very calm, unlike the previous presidential and National Assembly elections, where just close to the election, we had some hitches and clashes between thugs and some politicians. And what is actually happening now in Kano is that the police are doing a very good job in ensuring that this did not happen here in Kano State, just like the previous elections. What actually happened yesterday was that the NNPP and the APC scheduled, one of the parties scheduled a protest and the other scheduled a rally. And because of their antecedents, the police actually advised them not to go on with their procession. And they hit to that advice from the police, which they didn't do. And we didn't have any clash as a result of that. And right now here with me, I am with Mr. Maulud Adam, who is going to give us an update on the preparations of the Independent National Electoral Commission, especially looking at the elections was postponed for the Independent National Electoral Commission to have an opportunity to configure their beavers. Tell us how far with regards to the configuration of the beavers in Kano.
Good morning, Nigeria. In Kano, things are very much different because Kano is very large. We have about 11,222 polling units in Kano State. And as well, we have 484 registration areas in Kano State. As well, we have 44 local government in Kano State. And Kano is the second most populous state in Nigeria after Lagos. I want to tell you that the postponement of the one-week election is also an advantage in Kano State because all the hitches we have during the presidential and National Assembly elections, we have already now putting things in order now. I want to tell you that during the presidential election, we have hitches with regard to transportation of ad hoc staff and as well as the other arrangements. But now we have settled that issue, which is as a result of the contract we have between the NATO and the NURTW, where we have some issues. But now we have all understood each other now.
Just like you said, there were some hitches. A lot of polling units commenced the election very late. How sure are you this time around this will not happen?
What I want to tell you that as of yesterday, all our sensitive materials are already on ground in the 44 local governments in the Kano State. And today, they are going to move, today Friday, they are all going to be moved to the registration areas. And the issue we have the other time where we cannot be able to start maybe an election in some polling units, not all, but in some only few polling units, is as a result of this issue of transportation, which you have already sorted now. So I believe we are not going to see this kind of issues now. And I want to assure Nigerians and the Kano State that we are very much ready now. And yesterday, we had a refresher training for the SPOs, which are the officers that are going to take charge at the registration areas. And today, we are going to do another refresher training for the collection officers. So I want to tell you that we are very good to go in Kano State, and we are going to see free, fair, and credible elections during this election tomorrow coming.
Talking about inclusion, in the last election, we observed that there is no presence of availability of equipment that will help and aid persons living with disability in the polling units. What did you do about that in this election?
Well, I want to tell you that now everything is on ground, and for each local government, we have already separated this, we have distributed, and we are going to see changes. Even this one is as a regard of, late arrival from Abuja, but now everything is on ground, and I want to assure you that everything is going to be on ground during this election comes tomorrow.
When the coalition was going on in some local government in the last election, some ad hoc staff protested that they didn't get their transport allowances. So what are your preparations now that the governorship election is around?
Well, I want to tell you and assure you that the CBN in Kano State have fulfilled their promise. We have some little cash, though it's not in full complement, but we have cash that we can be able to start the payments for this transportation and maybe feeding, and the other payments are going to be online. And we have several ad hoc staff which we are dealing with in Kano State, being the second most populous state in the nation. But I want to assure you that all our payment has been made. And before this election tomorrow, we have already made all our payments, and we are going to see difference this coming election.
We hope so. Thank you very much, Mr. Maulud. This is Mr. Maulud Adam, who is the public relations officer here in Kano State. And in just 24 hours or less than 24 hours, the 5 million registered voters or over 5 million registered voters here in Kano are expected to go to the polls to choose their preferred candidates. Although in the last election, less than 40% of the electorate went out to vote. We are hoping to see more turnout in the next election. Chamberlain, back to you.
Well, yes, indeed. Thank you, Sadiq. But just before you go, we know that, yeah, we'll be coming back to Kano to get some update on security. But in terms of the voters, haven't seen how the elections panned out the last time, some security concerns that they raised. Do you have any inkling as to what their mindset is? Are they still going to come out in droves for the elections? Or what are you hearing at the moment?
Well, because of the tension, a lot of people have expressed fear that this election there might be violence. But because the security agencies are doing a lot to ensure that there is peace, just like I told you, yesterday there was a scheduled protest and a rally, but the police actually did very, very well to ensure that this did not happen and there wasn't any clash yesterday. So this is actually very reassuring for the voters, and I am very positive that the voters will come out in large numbers to cast their vote tomorrow.
You also spoke you also spoke to new voters the last time, just before the presidential election. So were you able to catch up with either the same set of people or new people who were enthusiastic before the presidential elections, and now do they still feel the same way? Haven't seen how things turned out?
Well, yeah, a lot of new voters are very enthusiastic to go and cast their vote tomorrow because they are more even interested in the state election than they were with the presidential elections. They have their own personal reasons, but they do have strong interest in going to the polls tomorrow and cast their votes. Back to you.
All right, Sadiq Ilyas, thank you very much indeed. Brilliant reporting, Sadiq, our correspondent in Kano. Well, let's bring it back here to the studios. We've got Idayat Hassan, who joins us now. She is the Director, Center for Democracy and Development, and sitting beside her, Professor Adele Jinodu, Chair of CDD's Electoral Analysis Center. Good morning, and thank you for joining us in the program today.
Nice to be here.
Well, already we've seen some reports that CDD did put out, several ditties, picking whichever one stands out to them. But let's talk about probably, these elections, but I see there's also some tailor back to what happened at the last elections. So let's start off with your impression as to where we are today with the elections in terms of the overall outlook. What are we looking at here, Idayat?
I think it's quite interesting. The February 25th elections has come and gone, and it has threw up a mixed bag, really. In terms of the presidential elections, the contention are still there and will continue to be there, and the mistrust between citizens and INEC has actually deepened following the elections. But interestingly also, an analysis of the National Assembly elections has been quite interesting and revealing. We have seen parties lose depending on geopolitical zone, but they have also made inroad. And above all, we now have a basket of parties that will be in the National Assembly. And this projection and the way the presidential elections and the National Assembly elections went were not always in tandem with the others. There were lots of split voting in these elections, which showed even beyond the role personality plays over parties. But also, I think the positive for me in that is the voter literacy across the country, where you see many parties being voted for, and you would be like, can I identify this symbol? But citizens could actually do that. So I think that's like on the positive, one of the positives from these elections. But when you draw it back to what will happen tomorrow, it will also have implications for what will happen tomorrow. It might not necessarily, the elections, for instance, the way people vote during the presidential elections are not necessarily going to drive the way people will vote during these governorship elections.
Yeah, let me bring in social media. I know that you had different scenarios before the presidential elections. And it turns out, interestingly, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, they had different following and usage across different zones of the country. Was your analysis in terms of what CDD saw, did it play out, and will it be as equally dynamic and different for governorship?
I think it will be a bit different for governorship because once we start with hashtags, hashtag will differs, and where people are focusing will differ. But what we also know is that people will be political party stalwarts, influencers. We also talk a lot about what one party is doing or what they perceived. But I know what will be so interesting tomorrow will be INEC. Will likely trend and carry the day. And that might actually have either it might be a positive or a negative. In some places, it might engender more people to go out and vote and actually watch their votes. Or it might dampen citizens' confidence such that turnout, which historically varies depending on states and geopolitical zone when it comes to subnational elections, might actually remain the same. Increase in places like Kano, I expect to see actually increased turnout, being the state where we had the most numbers of the turnout, I think, was like 30%, but we had the most vote count, 1.75, over 1.7 million votes, total cast, like the highest in the presidential elections. But social media will continue to be dynamic. And I think I even love the TikTokers because of the fun. The engagement actually is much more fascinating, while, of course, Twitter will continue to be very toxic, but also drive important participation. And one thing to look out for will be by 2 o'clock, the IREV, once they start hopefully uploading the results, we'll be seeing lots and lots of results turn up. Some will be genuine, some will not be. And this is also something that draws us back to the 25th, February 25th elections, where by 4 p.m. we were already seeing a total aggregate from a local government in an elections that commenced late, that you have to go from polling unit to ward level, and ward level before you get to local government, which is almost like an impossibility with the way coalition works at 4 p.m. in this country.
So quite a number of things for voters to be aware of. So while you're impressed with voter sophistication, the fact that people can vote, as Chamberlain always highlights, rice and beans. They can pick and select. Prof, I wonder what stood out for you. The major disappointment for a number of people in the last elections, especially with the failure of the IREV. But apart from that, what else stood out for you from the conclusion of the February 25th elections?
I think I was somewhat disappointed because I thought that the elections, looking at them before the 25th of February, I thought there will be what I call the political realignment, which will cut across ethno-religious grounds, particularly the youth bulge. But I was kind of disappointed because the fallout from those elections has shown that ethnicity and religion have become much more salient in our elections. And that because of that salience, they've also whipped up, sentiments that she was talking about social media, that more or less got expressed in hate speech and determination to suppress particular ethno-religious groups from voting. And that in itself has also engineered those who have been, there's an attempt to suppress them, being determined. So I think that, I was interested in what the guy from Kano said about that it looks peaceful, but I hope it's not a silence of the graveyard. Because the dynamics on election day itself may go out of hand and create, not even across, even within ethnic groups also, because the whole concept of you're a bastard for trying to vote for another ethnic group, for voting for another religious group, can even create intra-ethnic, intra-religious animosities that may be very, very difficult to repair after the elections. So that's a major worry for me.
Well, I'm looking at some of the states that you have highlighted here as states to look out for: Rivers, Lagos, Kano, Kaduna, and Sokoto. 5 of them, you say they are key states to watch. But you also said that there will be closely contested races in Cross River, Delta, Enugu, and Zamfara. And you also say, I wonder how this will work. I think we had a conversation. Adamawa could see the election of Nigeria's first female governor. I mean, it's a big code there. But I am wondering, you know, for Rivers and Lagos and Kano, Kaduna and Sokoto, the first 5 which you list, or which CDD lists, I'm wondering, what are some of the key elements to watch out for?
Well, I think, I mean, in Lagos, for example, the ethnic and religious factor will play a very, very important role. In Sokoto, the Hausa-Fulani divide may also play a part in influencing voter, you know, whom people are going to vote for. I think that's very, very important. But I also think the fact that in Rivers, for example, there's been so much, the atmosphere has been so much heated up, you know, that as between the APC, Labour Party, and the PDP, that you may find it very, very difficult for people to even come out and vote because they may be afraid of violence. And we may not see a reflection of the will of the people because of that.
Okay. Let me come to you, Idayat. I'm just wondering, 11 governorship races where the incumbents will be on the ballot. Do you think that it'll be any different from the other states where it seems a fresh page, a fresh start, or let me say it should be an all-comers affair. Any of the political parties can take it. What do you think will really determine whether incumbents will be able to retain their seats in the states where they are vying to keep those seats for a second term?
One, I'll still go back to Prof's, but let me immediately answer this first, is the heated nature of the contest. And after the February 25th elections, where we saw 7 incumbent governors across parties refuse to get their senatorial seats.
Refused? They lost it.
They lost. Okay, were rejected at the polls. They were refused by the people.
Oh,
I
yes,
think this
indeed.
was a direct thing of citizens. Like, it's almost like unheard of previously. For many of Nigerians, they've seen the Senate to be the resting home, retirement home for governors. But we had 7 across party lines that did not make it this time around. And when you go back and check some of the voting pattern in the state, you will see that it wasn't the party that was actually being rejected. It was more the personality that was being rejected. In fact, some of those states, they will win like 2 senatorial districts and lose the particular one that belongs to the governor, which is quite interesting. Again, then some of the contests are also much more heated than the other as well. We are talking here of an election where we know that identity will play a very interesting role. And by now you are talking zoning, you are talking, people are bringing back, it's not just generation, it's not the way it's actually played out in the presidential elections. Here politics is local and citizens have also become extremely more aware. Nobody necessarily also have the monopoly of violence or is able to actually intimidate people. There is also no money that you can say, and people will not sell their vote on credit or are even enjoying the collection of the old notes, which has now come back into circulation. So there is going to be lots of dynamics, and it makes those 11 contests likely to actually be much more heated than the other 17 out of the 28 seats that is up for grab. Now, when it comes to those states that we have actually highlighted, for instance, when you look at Sokoto, it will be an example. All the states, Sokoto, Rivers, I added Bauchi again, and even Kano, they all have a history of not finishing their votes on one ballot.
Why did they add Bauchi
Inconclusive, I think in my head. Bauchi is there, but you know, we have a larger report also.
Okay.
So you find again that they did not even conduct their elections in one fell swoop. Go back from 2015 to Rivers. How many inconclusive? 2019, supplementary elections. And with the state of play, you will find it. You take Sokoto as an example as well. They could not even declare win in the 3 senatorial seats and the 11 House of Representative seats in the last elections. There will still have to be supplementary elections after this. Kano, the same as also.
That was particularly interesting.
Interesting in 2019. Now, what is actually linking again with all these states are the role personalities are playing. So some of it is a replay match. So you go to Sokoto, you find that people are actually replaying, and Kano, even Rivers. What happened either in 2015, in 2019, is being replayed in 2023 because of the personality politics.
But for that of Kano, sorry to jump in, are we likely to see, because in Kano, for the presidential, we know who swept it. Unlike in 2019, how they ran each other close, and personalities there, he was returning. And so eventually, even though many thought that he was going to be on his way out, but somehow he came back and got the ticket. So for the presidential, whilst the new party, the other party swept it, is it likely to repeat itself? Because the dynamics there too will be a little tricky.
When you go back to 2019 and you see Kano, if the elections have been declared, the first thing is all the people that are involved in 2023 were also involved in 2019.
Yeah.
So that will make it extremely heated because they have pent-up animosity against the other. This is not just about Gandujia and Kwakwanseya. It's also about contested. Gauna and Garo were also, if Gauna was on the ticket, Garo, and they, in quotes and unquotes, what actually led to the disruption of the votes in Gama ward that led to the being declared inconclusive when this guy was leading by 21,000 votes. So there will be pent-up anger that will actually be replayed on Saturday. But it's also a state where the way people vote is quite interesting. I think we rarely talk about the sociology of the voters, how they vote, and what actually inspires them to vote. One thing that keeps being interesting is the fact that personalities are playing increasing role in these elections. It's the same in Sokoto, it's the same in Kano.
As opposed to parties.
As opposed to parties. And most times, the voters are lying behind those personalities without necessarily looking at the symbol which they are actually flying. And if you go, before Prof. jumps in, before you go back, if you go again to the this February 25th elections, and you take Kano, for instance, NNPP won. Do you barely see their logo? Do you know their symbol, which is very important? And how popular did it become? You saw SDP too in Nasarawa winning 2 out of the senatorial district. So I think it will be one of the most interesting elections to watch. I'm more worried about the ability to call it on the first round and the potential for violence to disrupt the polls than who actually emerges the winner.
But you know, that analysis is quite interesting. But I think behind the personality, there is also something emerging. And I think the personality factor is in fact hanging on to that. That is, people are now concerned about performance in office. Exactly. The role of ideas. I mean, in Lagos, in Kano, the performance of the incumbents or the ruling party in the last 8 years or more than they have become an issue. That people say, we are fed up with this. We are fed up with this. You have not delivered. You have not lived up to your promise. And so a new personality arises using the platform of a political party and is able to carry some kind of a protest vote against the ruling regime.
But Prof, pardon me, Diet, you know, that personality scenario, maybe I'll tie it to sociology much later, but in Kano, not even Kano now, Sokoto, the factors there are a little, well, maybe you say if it's different or not. At that time, the current person was seeking a second one. He wanted to return. Now, he will be on his way out. They ran themselves close then. They ran themselves close for the presidential now. Yeah. And then, do I use the word godfatherism?
Yes.
Because the man there before says, I'm the top dog here. I brought you in here. So I still have to show the people I have a say here. Yeah. But he is equally up saying, listen, I need to prove a point that I'm not just a neophyte. I might have been your PA at some point, but I have a say here too. So how is the personality factor going to play up in Sokoto?
Let me speak to that, actually. I think the personality ties to performance in Sokoto. And it's also about political family, which has been fracturing. So Sokoto is really Wamako versus Bafarawa. It's not even Tamboa and the Aleo, and they are still the same people. And our performance ties to it is that most of the citizens are equally saying, for the last couple of years, these people have left office for quite some time. 2007, before Tamboa himself got in 2015, Wamako, but they've not seen better beyond these two personalities you are talking about in terms of leadership and who their successors really are. So what do? We will either go with one of these people and who have also kept their political machinery well-oiled since they left office, that they still remain extremely relevant to the people and performing in whichever way you call it. So there seem to be performance. So it's personality linked to performance and also having the same actors or political gladiators coming up. And 342 votes led to the emergence of Governor Tamboa in
That's how close it was.
How close it was. And when you go back to the presidential votes also of February 25th, you see again that was extremely close, of talking between 2,000, 3,000 votes difference between the APC and the PDP. But there are also, I think, one factor when we talk in terms of Sokoto we are not also bringing is the political violence is one, then also the issue of insecurity in Eastern Sokoto, where you have like 5 local governments, again, where they will have to do some special form of voting. But in terms of turnout, it will actually be close, and the fear will be, hopefully, it will not turn inconclusive like 2019 based on violence.
I think we should also look at Kaduna, this broader context also, because here you have, it's not so much partly personality because of the outgoing governor, but also the religious factor and the insecurity factor playing in. And you could see that clearly in the presidential elections, and also I think in the down ballot voting also in that. So I think, in terms of the personality, I think in some places the religion becomes very, 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 very critical.
I know that.
Place like Kaduna.
I know that my colleague Ayo is waiting to come in just a moment. Ayo, send it to you. But let me quickly ask you this. Yeah. How important, Prof, I mean, considering just how closely contested these elections are going to be, we saw the relevance of the IREV in Oshun and how it, at least was able to calm nerves, even though, yes, the aggrieved party went to court at the end of the day and they're still in the court, as the case is. But we saw that it was able to calm nerves. I mean, that there was some measure of transparency. We've seen how the IRF has worked in a number of places. How important is it that platform works this particular Saturday?
I think it's important in terms of renewing self-confidence and faith in INEC to be able to deliver transparently. I think it's very, very important. But I think much more important for me is the role of the beavers in all of this, that the beavers must actually work. But the beavers is the bottom line for all of this, for whatever comes out of the process. So I think we need to look at IREV, but we also need to look at beavers, because that is your point about electronic transmission of the result. And I think beavers is very, very key to that.
Okay, all right. Let's take this. Let's take this conversation now to Lagos. Ayo.
Thank you, Malkwe. I was actually, you had amazing conversation with the lady and gentleman there, but let me begin with Ms. Hazen concerning one of the things you said in response to some of the questions that my colleagues raised about how competitive the 25th of February elections was, the national elections, how competitive the elections were. You talked about the SDP getting some states. I don't know if they ever did that before. You talked about, some states, literally taking what belonged to some other establishments, if I can say that. How significantly would you say that has helped or not the political education or the development of our democracy in Nigeria?
I think, interestingly, finally we can start talking in terms of multi-party democracy in the true sense of the word, really. And you will see it's multi-party in the sense that for the first time, the 10th National Assembly will have 8 parties being represented there. And we've not had anything similar to that since the return to democracy in 1999. I think that's such a handful. 8 at the House of Representatives, 7 at the Senate itself. And some of these results are fascinating. So if you look at SDP winning 2 out of the 3 senatorial districts in Nasarawa, is quite, it's interesting. And the same winning another 2 House of Representatives seats there. We saw the tsunami of labor across the country, which is extremely fantastic. We saw even parties like APM. We saw the NNPP. So the projection was not the 4 parties we were all concentrating on in terms of NNPP, the LP, the APC, and the PDP emerging. But at the end, we have 8. And I think this is quite interesting. Then we saw in-votes. So for instance, if you go and see that the APC used to be like very big in northern Nigeria, but they lost lots of seats in northern Nigeria beyond the presidential elections. Look at Gombe, for instance. 2 out of the senatorial districts have now been taken over by the PDP. But in the same way, they made inroad, even in the southeastern part of the country, where they now have 6 senatorial districts, even as against the Labour, which is their majority area, 5 senatorial districts, 9 senatorial districts out of 18 in the south-south again. So it has altered some of the formation. And you saw in Osun, they lost like practically everything in Osun, both the senatorial and the House of Representatives seats. So it has altered the whole political configuration. But fantastic again is to say that how do voters know a party such like as that in Rivers State, where PDP did not just win big, they had, I think it's the APM or something, win one of the House of Representative seats itself, which says that somehow, I think we are also evolving as a people. And the way money was used compared to previous elections, yes, we know that in presidential elections, nobody has got the money to buy the nation. So there is always reduced vote buying in presidential elections. But this was like very reduced. Yes, it still happened, maybe in cash, in kind, in materials. We even saw people give out safer dollars. But it wasn't profound, telling you that people, for instance, voted based on their conviction, either for parties or for the candidates that they actually believed in. So I think we are getting some things right. And you will see that even immediately after the elections, in spite of the excitement with which we went into the elections, and to the kind of, some might actually be despondent, but also in some parts of the country, some are so active and waiting for tomorrow to cast their ballot. So I think we are getting, something is happening, and this election, post-elections, things can never be the same again. There will be more of post-election mandate protection this time around.
Well, very interesting way to put those words, madam. But, you know, the question, one of the questions one may also want to ask, I mean, you just said now that it seems like people voted their conscience, really. But then there are some results that, unfounded or not, some are saying, we didn't even know this candidate, and he won. And all of that is also there. So I'm wondering whether you think that this tsunami, so to speak, is because people actually interrogated the candidates and the parties, or they were just not happy with the establishment.
Bandwagon effect. The bandwagon effect worked for some parties, not all the parties, really. The bandwagon effect worked where we saw many people that people didn't know emerge winners. But we should not also be too tailored to say that this bandwagon effect was like across the country. In some of those states, what actually happened is there is a flip. So if you look at the areas Labour actually won in Lagos, it flipped. They were traditional PDP territory in the House of Representatives. What it did was it basically flipped to Labour. But when you look at other places, you find that the influence, the bandwagon effect, the Peter Obi effect, of course, also influenced the outcome. But in other places, it's also a matter of inter-party and the intra-party conflict, which led many people to exit their party to now vie under another platform, telling us and making it that as a person, they are very, very relevant in their own community, in their constituency. So whichever symbol they fly, they would actually get their vote. And I think that's what we saw in Nasarawa, where the two SDP were former APC.
Well, Prof, let me ask you about some of the projections contained in your, preview of these elections. One of the things that you said, which is I find quite interesting, and you've spoken about them, both of you, in various ways. You said there is likely to be an intensification of political competition in more localized races, and this increases the likelihood of violence with states such as Kaduna, Kano, Lagos, Rivers, Sokoto, and Zamfara. Is there a way of getting ahead of this? Because we've spoken with two policemen this morning, and one from Borno State, the other, of course, the force PRO at the national level. And the kind of conversation we're having, I'm not sure if you think any of the issues raised here, particularly this intensification of political competition, which could increase likelihood of violence in these states, has been factored in. What do you think?
No, I think people are prepared to stand up and and prevent any attempt to deny them of exercising their vote. That is one good thing that is coming out of all of this. I also think that basically the political parties themselves don't want to lose this opportunity to give room to any kind of having to postpone election, inconclusive election. So they want to get it all over with as quickly as possible. So I have confidence in that happening. But what is important, I think, is that people are now aware and they are now prepared to express their vote, irrespective of any attempt to suppress the votes.
Which many people will believe to be very, very important, is one of the projections along the fact that INEC staff will not only be challenged by popular perceptions of their poor performance during the presidential polls, but will be the targets of intimidation and co-option from politically aligned actors. That, in a way, could put the INEC officials, ad hoc officials, at risk, wouldn't you say?
Yes, that will actually go a long way in putting them at risk. If you check the social media just as a basis, like a microsome, you would have seen many results actually emerge where they say one INEC staff is one ad hoc staff signed for everybody. At the same time, we've also seen ad hoc staff come up openly to support a candidate during the elections, like that flying. And we know the way the elections went and the feeling people even have against young people. So this will likely get people to actually be extremely, maybe I should say responsive this time in saying they are trying to protect their own mandate. While, of course, there is still the issue of co-option, because, of course, people are always available for a price as well, beyond the intimidation. And also the way it also went, our reports actually from the February 25th field report also suggest not just lack of incompetency or poor training, but that some people also willingly allowed themselves to actually be co-opted, either for pecuniary interest or based on identity in those elections. But one important point to note is that the adequacy of the security deployment will go a long way in improving the quality of the elections. While in the just concluded elections, we didn't have much to say in terms of intimidation of observers or voters, but there were challenges when it came to the deployment of security. So you have a polling unit with like 1,000, 1,500, even 500, and you have one single police or just even one single officials of the Nigeria Immigration or Nigerian prison. When push comes to shove, the ability to actually properly maintain law and order becomes extremely difficult. So there will be need for adequate deployment to prevent some of these challenges tomorrow.
How concerned are you, madam, about the claims of hacks? You know, which presidency put out, and I think INEC also put out before the elections of February 25. There are those who are saying that is perhaps one of the reasons that they said, you know, the IRF didn't work. Whether or not that is true, I guess we will have to wait for some investigation for that. But how concerned are you about, you know, the deployment of technology, seeing what happened in February 25, how concerned are you about the deployment tomorrow, especially BVAS, as contained in your projections for the elections?
I think really for the BVAS, what we saw in the last elections was basically that where the BVAS malfunctioned, it was actually fixed like more than 80%, like 88% of the time within a 30 to 1 hour maximum. So the rack tech actually worked. But tomorrow, you should expect that because politics is local and the history of previous state elections have always shown it to actually be much more violent than presidential elections. So there is likelihood that people will be stealing beavers. I'm not putting ideas in people's mind or trying to tamper with it. Then while we talk about beavers linked to IREV is that technology is not actually a silver bullet. It's not foolproof. Nor can you actually try to integrate integrity into elections solely by technology. It actually requires much more than technology. But when it comes to the IREF portal, even if it is hacked, the people often make the mistake that the IREF is actually doing like it's an upload of results, a photo quick count where you can see, you can view. It will prevent people cheating at the polling unit because they have an idea that immediately the votes are counted, and it will be uploaded, and you can check if you are taking note itself. Even if it is brought down, all the parties and the security agents do have a copy of the results because they do have polling agents in all the polling units, assumed in all the polling units across the country. So that forms a counterbalance. So that's, for me, more like a citizens' portal that is promoting transparency and accountability in the whole electoral process.
I have written down that quote of yours. You cannot integrate integrity into elections solely by technology. I think it's something that people need to, you know, hold on to. But, you know, nonetheless, citizens are still hoping that they will be able to hold on, to the results from their polling units, and that is what happens in their polling units that INEC will, you know, eventually have at the state collation centers. And as a result, a number of them are taking matters into their own hands by having their own collation centers. How helpful do you think this will be?
I think it's one of the scare. And I'm sure we are having a press conference this morning. It's one of the things we will actually be highlighting, because now currently there are more. Well, this is welcome because, in fact, since 2015, we all became Excel. We were all tabulating in our homes, following. In fact, when we started E60A or whatever, we started tabulating before we went to E68A now, tabulating the vote. So these are quite good. But with the role the social media plays, and the fact that there are good actors. So we will say, across this table, we are the good actors. There are also bad actors. I will personally say that going on the field, speaking to people for one of our reports on fake news, people were already thinking of how to instrumentalize the IREF to show that their candidates are leading, even though they are not leading. So they are weaponizing it. So they will weaponize it online. And if people do not also, the rules. So the weaponization online is even more worrying than the weaponization by the mainstream media, and that can rile up tension.
Where are the ethical hackers?
I think also it's
yes,
important to note two things in this respect. One is the role of the polling agents. Each political party is supposed to have
party agents,
and they are supposed to certify results.
Okay.
In most cases, they fail to do that as part of the process of doing this. I think it's important to emphasize that point.
All right. So okay. We'll have to go, I'm told.
The other point I think is that we should also remember that only results announced by INEC.
Yeah.
You know, acceptable in law. So anybody who claims he has one or she has one, we have to go and prove that in court. Because there must be just one result, and it's only INEC that has that authority to declare the results.
All right, we couldn't get to Adamawa, but that's how far we can go today here with Idai Hassan, Director, Center for Democracy and Development, as well as Professor Adili Jinodu, Chair of CD's Electoral Analysis Center. Thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right, we're back in a moment. Don't go away. Head over to our studios in Kano, where Mohammed Gumel, the Commissioner of Police, joins us to give us an update on the security situation in Kano. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, we do know that yesterday there were some concerns about some press conference, some political parties, security agencies, all concerned about how Kano was going to go about ensuring security of voters tomorrow. So could you give us an update as a build-up from yesterday? What is the current situation now about expectations from the police to ensure that there is peace when people go out there to vote tomorrow?
Good morning, Nigerians. I bring you a greeting from the Center of Commerce, the Kano State. Kano State Police Command, as you are all aware, has been in the forefront of planning to give the people of Kano State the desired security platform for every citizen to conduct his or her right of voting without fear of being molested or being harassed by any individual or group of persons. This, we have been on it, and in collaboration with other sister security agencies, which of course you know, the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security in Kano State has been one of the most vibrant committee discussing on almost all parcels of security: the military, the Air Force, the Navy, the DSS, and all agencies that are banded together to conduct this national assignment have been talking together, have been deciding, have been planning, and the plans have been a robust work. 48 hours ago, we had stakeholders engagement with the party candidates and the party leaders, where they gave us their words and their commitment that the election would go as planned, without any one of them being found wanting in any aspect of security. This we acknowledge, and we appreciate that commitment, that the beneficiaries of the election, the candidates, have come up to tell the police that they will agree and accept the outcome of the elections. I think this is a very big searchlight to tell any other stakeholders that the ball is rolling and peace, as we have been talking about, is going to reign in Kano State.
Mm. Well, again, Commissioner, if I may come in, I don't know if you can hear me. I know that you've deployed, we understand that you've deployed over 18,000 personnel in Kano State, police personnel in Kano State. But I am wondering, because there have also been talks around importation of thugs into the state. Is this a scenario that you are aware of? And what precisely are you doing about it, if indeed this is the situation?
Yeah, Yes, actually, what you said, you could be right, but in terms of figure, I'm not emphatic about the number you mentioned, because the number could be more and could be less. However, I am keep assuring every citizen of this state that we have quite a number of personnel, security personnel, that are kitted, well-trained, well-informed on how to face the election and to give INEC the necessary support to conduct this election from the beginning to the end without anybody being harassed or being molested. We took a lesson from the previous election. Of course, you are aware that we had a strategic meeting with the Inspector General of Police, and we have conducted a review on what happened, a kind of after-action review. And lapses were identified in some areas, and the discussion now took care of those lapses, and we, the stakeholders, now come up with our requirement to the leadership of the police, and those requirements were given to us, in fact, beyond our expectation, because some of the things we asked the Inspector General of Police to give us was even extended beyond what we requested. We have quite a number of personnel that are here. I don't want always play around with number, but in terms of personnel, I'm aware that a full squadron of the police mobile force have been posted to the command. We have received them, we have briefed them, and we have equipped them. They have the kits, they have the capacity to conduct this election as well.
I'm glad to hear, sir. I'm glad to hear that indeed you have everything that you need, even more than what you requested. I mean, that's certainly heartwarming to hear. So, I mean, certainly tomorrow there should be no excuse. Tomorrow and, of course, the day after, I mean, you should be on standby to for any fallout. Hopefully none will be violent, you know, from the elections. But can you speak specifically to these allegations of importation of thugs that have been leveled against, you know, parties have been leveling these allegations against themselves? Is this something that you're aware of? And if you are, is there anything you're doing about it?
Well, let me tell you that we have in the state a robust intelligence community platform that we always collect, analyze, and the end product of that intelligence has already been disseminated to people of the people that are tagged as action teams of the Nigerian police force in collaboration with other agencies. So issues of thuggery, it has been a rumor that has been peddling around all over part of, especially the northern part of Nigeria. We are aware of that, and already a decision has been taken on how to overcome those situations. The way we plan and deploy our teams out, I think it will be scaring enough for anybody
Mr. Gumel,
who intend
to
come. Yes.
Are you assured, because first, just as Magba also highlighted, now the APC accused the NNPP of getting fake observers for today. NNPP accused the APC of trying to rig the elections with security agencies. Then DSS is reported to have arrested 2 people for inciting violence in Kano. So there's a lot of things going on there that people want to be sure that the voters can actually go out there. Are you today, here and now, assuring everybody that Kano State Police Command will do what they have to do? They will be neutral, irrespective of whose ox is God, that people should go out there and vote. No matter who breaks the law, the command will deal decisively as the law requires.
Thank you very much. Indeed, what you said is correct. All we need as Nigeria Police Force, working together with our sister agencies, is for the citizens of the state to believe in us. What we said, they are going to see it. We have a robust plan in terms of overcoming any challenge that may come up. I'm sure if we are to unveil the kind of deployment and the strategies taken in order to overcome these rumors, whether it is correct or not, no information, of course, is useless. Talks are being brought or will be brought, but our planning is starting from the midnight of today.
All right.
In fact, even as usual, the normal security deployment has been on in all the local government area, checking on anybody or any vehicle found going about with weapon or anything. So before the end of today and tomorrow morning during the voting process, you are aware of the restriction order, and that will be imposed to the letter.
All right. We'll have to thank you very much indeed.
At the back.
Oh, pardon me. We know you have a job to do, so we'll have to let you get to it, Mr. Mohammed Gumel, Commissioner of Police for Kano State. Thank you for coming on, and all the best as you do your best for the people of Kano.
Thank you very much. I'm glad having you.
All right, so we will be back in just a moment, but just remind you, go down memory lane. Remember the chairman of INEC of Chatham House? Have a look.
A second lesson from the 2019 election is that early choice of election technology management tools, especially the main election technology, is very critical for success. Their proper pilot testing and deployment are exceedingly important for a successful election. For election technology, early decision is central to maintaining its integrity, popularizing it among voters, and addressing any challenges that could arise. We know that political actors often try to undermine the process by attacking the technology, casting doubts on its suitability, bypassing its use, or indeed seeking to undermine its security. This informed the early choice of a new voter accreditation technology using an electronic device called the bimodal voter accreditation system. We have tested it in several by-elections and off-cycle governorship elections. In addition, the decision to make polling unit election results available for public viewing, which has always been a major demand by citizens and election observers, falls into this early choice of election technology. The INEC Results Viewing Portal, the IREV, is a dedicated web portal for the public view of polling unit results as soon as they are finalized on election day. This has been employed in several elections conducted by the Commission in the past few years. In particular, the uploading of polling unit results to the IREV portal has been deployed in 105 constituencies where the Commission conducted off-season elections since August 2020. The result can still be viewed on the portal, making the IREV an invaluable repository of election results in Nigeria. It is actually our biggest archives for election results. And citizens and anybody who registers on the portal can still view the results for all the 105 constituencies.
Cynthia Bamalu joins us now, Director of Program, Yaga Africa. Good morning. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Good morning.
Tomorrow is a big day.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see any ballot paper not count. Mm-hmm. After doing what you can, they have to be sure that the votes can and will and should count.
Yes, yes.
So, yes, take us through Because, I mean, on the heat of the day, the election day dynamic, your chances are that, after all, if you look at the figure, the number of votes that were voided, it is huge.
Yeah.
People could win elections if you put that together with those. Why do these things happen in the first place? Any idea?
Yeah, I think first is the lack of voter education, especially voter education around election day process and how to vote. And because we have this system of thumbprinting with an ink, there's a likelihood that if you're not properly educated on how to properly thumbprint, that the ballot paper wouldn't count or your ballot wouldn't count. And like you mentioned, in the presidential elections, we have over about 938,279 invalid votes, so rejected ballot. That's close to 1 million. So you can imagine that that is a huge number, plus the low turnout. You could imagine that if you add that to a candidate's votes, that is also really huge. Substantial. And for the governorship elections, where we have elections happening at state level, if you have more invalid votes, it could also affect the outcome of an election, which is why it's important voters understand the need to thumbprint properly. They need to ensure you have the right ballot paper ahead of and before you go and drop the ballot paper in the ballot box.
Indeed, we cannot emphasize that. It always sounds like, it's repetition. But, having been a first-time voter myself, I understood why it's extremely important for this sort of education to happen. I mean, things as simple as ink pads. In my polling unit, it wasn't working. I mean, citizens were reporting the fact that they had to go and help bring ink pads, to help, so that they could thumbprint in their elections. But I was looking at this, the feasibility of folding my paper like this. In two. But it was quite long. I know it's not as long as what we had in 2019 or 2015, where we had 78 political parties. But even then, with 18 political parties, it still seemed a bit difficult to fold the ballot paper like this. I mean, this is not diagonal now. I'm trying to find
inward vertical is what is described as.
Inward vertical. So please to be informed. It's still a bit difficult. Are there any alternatives in terms of how to fold a ballot paper?
Well, for these elections, because we still thumbprint, this is the only way of folding the ballot paper. And the idea is, if you fold inward vertical, if the ink spills, it will spill still within the same column where you have your preferred party. However, if you fold the other way, it becomes a challenge.
Inward horizontal, it will be on another...
So this would be inward. This person obviously folded inward horizontal. And this is one reason a ballot paper would be rejected, where the choice of the voter is not clear. Because now we can't tell, are you voting for the party on top or the second party? Because it's on both, on the column for both parties. And once this is the case, the ballot paper would be rejected. Same also for those who forget to thumbprint. We have instances where people forget to thumbprint.
What?
Yeah.
They didn't forget, or maybe they don't have a choice amongst the people. Some people only went to vote for presidential elections. And I don't want to vote for
the others.
Yes, so
yeah, that is also possible.
Yeah.
But we also realize that sometimes voters, it's how would I put it? It's tension getting to the voting cubicle, and then you were supposed to, and then you just went in, quickly moved, and then dropped the ballot. And like, I just dropped the ball.
And you didn't vote.
And you don't have the opportunity to retrieve, right? There's a difference. There's an instance where you make a mistake and you can go back and request for a ballot paper, for instance. So that is when a ballot is spoiled. So that ballot will not make it into the box. Once you have put it in a ballot box, you wouldn't be issued any ballot paper anymore. So that's when the choice is not clear. So
that point is very important, because while I was at the polling unit, most people are able to identify you're in trouble. Someone was saying, someone was trying to say, please, ma, do you think my ballots will still count? What? Because I think I've made a mistake. And I said, speak with the polling officer.
Yeah.
I cannot advise you. I don't know. So
voters actually have a right to... Because there's an expectation that voters, before you get to the voting cubicle, you could make a mistake. Some people could thumbprint or mistakenly tear the sheet and all. Now, a voter can actually go back to the presiding officer and say, I made a mistake. With this, can I get another ballot paper? What is important is that ballot paper is kept aside, and then another one is issued. So that ballot paper doesn't make it into the ballot box. So those are usually ballot papers you call spot ballots. Spot ballots do not make it into the ballot box. However, at the close of polls, they are counted also because you need to account for that. And that gives us a total number of used ballot papers.
But what would you advise? Because remember, when people go about threatening people not to do certain things or vote in a certain way, and if it turns out that one ballot is a mistake on the ballot paper, and then you go drop it or seek in another one, if you had already thumbprinted in a particular way, chances are that somebody might see that, and who knows. So if the person is thinking they're supposed to destroy it and not let somebody see it, will that happen?
It should be to spoil it even further. So maybe
so they don't,
so maybe you
that thought will not come to it won't come to somebody immediately.
In a good process where people are properly queued, no one is with you where you are going to do your voting or cast your vote. People ordinarily are not meant to even see how it. Once you move from the polling officials to the voting cubicle, only the polling official can just cite you because ordinarily it's open secret ballot. However, the challenge is you have polling units that are overcrowded, which is why some people may even just feel, okay, I've made a mistake, I'll just proceed with that. But what is important is that voters realize that there are still instances, just so that if you don't go put in an invalid ballot inside a ballot box, you can approach the PRIO and explain I made a mistake. But they have to retrieve that, keep that, because they would be counting that at the end of the polls. The other point is where a ballot paper is not signed, stamped or dated. This is called endorsed ballot paper. Now, for every ballot paper you're issued, you need to ensure that the presiding officer signs, stamps, and dates the ballot paper. It's done behind the ballot paper.
I was very grateful for that education because I remember looking at my ballot paper and looking for it to be stamped, signed, and dated. Whoa. So, yeah, this little thing.
So if you rush off,
yes, it would be invalid because at the counting of polls, only the ballot papers that are properly endorsed, that's those that were signed, stamped, and dated, that would be counted. Because, you know, when they count polls, they first remove rejected ballots, and then they count the valid ones.
So maybe you should try voting tomorrow. They should take that for at least at the back. Because if people don't look at the back and just look, if this is it, I just stomp and not knowing that you have to look to the back.
Yeah, so that's once they issue you the ballot paper, ensure it is properly signed, stamped, and dated. It can be on the front now. That's where the voting will be happening.
Because people rush them, so
yes.
If you just look at the front only, so now you need to remember, just be calm. You need to be calm on the election day, or else after waking up by 5 a.m., if that's when you got up and you get there, you don't do just simple things as looking to the back.
It could take you out. The other point is where you, where a voter in thumbprinting makes a sign, or okay, we've talked about this, where there is no sign on the ballot paper.
Yes.
You forget to thumbprint. We've seen this happen on election day. We're not sure why, but we're just thinking either tension or what have you. There's also a likelihood that we have persons with disability who do not have the fingers, especially persons with any of these that affect your fingerprints. Now, I remember one of the training was for those individuals, they can actually thumbprint with, what do I call it, with their toes. Now, will I call it thumbprint? No. Yeah, you could do toe print, yeah, with your toes. So there's an expectation that there are individuals who may not have the fingers to do so.
That has to be carefully done.
Yes, it has to be carefully done.
Are there special boxes for them? Because, you know, the toes are a little bigger than the fingers.
Not really. At this moment, not really. However, what is important is that when it comes to that, you don't need to have all you need is just to have the ink, a portion of the ink on the toe or placed at the right column, and you put it just in the middle. So you don't need the whole surface of your toe to be used. The other thing is there's no requirement for any fingers to be used for thumbprint. So it must, while it says thumbprint, you could use your index finger, your middle fingers, or your last, the pinky finger. So what is important is that you have that ink marked on the ballot paper.
I have somebody who wants his vote to count, so maybe he just has a question for me. So.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, for my vote to count, INEC has to get there on time. And I know it's one of those issues that Yaga Africa had been concerned about. So, madam, how concerned are you about the logistics that were deployed in the previous election, especially seeing that this is perhaps going to be a little more competitive than the last one?
Well, I am concerned because, you know, the presidential elections recorded late commencement of polls across the country. Some regions opened later than others. And we saw how voting went into the night for some locations. And for these elections, we're hoping that there's more commitment to early commencement of polls. So, for instance, as at yesterday morning, we had gotten reports from 26 states, that's 26 of the 36 states where elections will be happening, that materials had moved from the state capital, CBN, to the local government areas. And from today, materials will be deployed from the local government areas to the RACs, the registration area centers, ahead of Saturday morning deployment to the polling units. Now, all things being equal, because we're still observing, we currently have our observers at the local government areas to confirm that the materials are the local government areas and that they are moving from local government to the RACs. The idea is if you deal with those early movement to the RACs, it means materials and personnel will be closer to the polling on elections day. Now, that's one part. The other part is around the contracts with the transport unions and the transporters. One thing we observed in the presidential elections was some transporters refused to move on elections day because they had not been properly paid. And most of them said until they are paid, they would not move. One of the things we had called on INEC from our press statement yesterday, as Yaga Africa, was to remind INEC, or rather call on INEC, that every contractual agreement with transporters should be strictly adhered to. So payments made ahead of time, at least by the eve of, by tonight and tomorrow morning, every payment should be made, just so that transporters have no excuse than to move. The other thing is also that they engage adequate vehicles for movement. We got reports where you had vehicles carrying multiple polling units and trying to locate those polling units. So it's also important that those things are addressed ahead of the elections on Saturday. So the right numbers for deployment should be strictly properly managed to ensure we have early commencement of polls. Because if polls begin late, then we mean we vote into the night, and that is in itself is a challenge, especially for a contentious and competitive election like that would have on Saturday.
Okay, I think we're going to take one more slide. Maybe let's go to how to locate the polling units.
Oh, yes. But I think the last part is writing and marking. I think it's important. Some voters write their names on ballot papers. Remember, it's secret ballots. You shouldn't write your name. You shouldn't mark anything. Just thumbprint and go. The other is how to locate your polling units. Locating your polling unit is important because we know not every voter turned out on Saturday, 25th. So those who have not voted before, please, you go on the website, cvr.inecnigeria.org/VVS. Put in your name and your date of birth. You'd get your information. Use today to locate that polling unit because that is important to find out. You can also go on voters.inecnigeria.org. For those who did not vote on Saturday, President, 25th February, please, you can still vote this time. It doesn't make sense that turnout was about 27%. Some states had less than 20% voter turnout for the presidential elections. And for these elections, honestly, the only way to change outcome is to increase turnout.
All right, that's Cynthia Bamalu, Director, Program Yaga Africa. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we have comments or do we go to Lagos and see what's happening in the field? Ayo, anything for else? You start with the messages this time?
Well, just before the messages, we're talking about voter turnout. Well, logistics of INEC. And here in Lagos, Kevin, my colleague Kelvin Obaten, is at the INEC area office in Ikeja to give us an update. Well, Kelvin, how far so far? How significantly would you say the issues of logistics have been preempted against tomorrow? Well, Kelvin is talking, but I can barely hear what he was saying. Certainly we'll bring you more of that in good enough time some other time. But don't forget, of course, that the 2023 verdict is our studio for the elections. The next session will open at 7 p.m. tonight. And tomorrow, all through until the final results are announced, we'll be with you live. For now, thank you for joining us. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes, indeed. We'll see you on the other side. And keep it locked here with us. The 2023 verdicts, state elections. Remember that. I'm Chamberlain, so goodbye.
Please get ready to exercise your franchise once again. Thank you. I'm Mao Beogun Yusuf.